Welcome to the Bachelor Universe podcast. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about. This show is just too much. But we'll get into it in a second. I'm your host, Jim Alexander, joined by my co-host, as always, Jeff York, and Paige Carpenter still missing. She's missing like Becca, so maybe she's in a weed mountain farm or something. So
that could be. I think she's down in Florida visiting her family down there. But I think allegedly,
yep.
Yeah, I think she's really off with Becca M. Checking out the weed farm.
Right. So one day, hopefully, we'll get her before all of Bachelor season ends.
Yes.
If not, we're gonna have a police report and have her search warrant go out for her.
You can start talking about true crime, Jim. That'll be your next podcast.
It's going to be a different podcast.
It'll be Real Talker and Real Crime.
Well, Jeff, we have a lot to cover. We got to cover
sure
the finale of Winter Games, and we're going to cover last night's Women Tell All.
Yes.
Boy, in a couple hours, we're going to have another episode of The Bachelor. It's like this show cannot stop. Like, honestly, with all the reviews I'm sick of it. I want this to end already. It's not fun to be writing reviews almost every 5 times in a 1-week span, Jeff. From last Monday till today, I'm going to write 5 reviews for this show. Not that I'm complaining, but I am complaining because these shows are 2 hours each, and I need to do play-by-play and put up. It's been taxing on me. I don't want to write anything else because of this show. So,
well, especially since those shows haven't been that exciting. I mean, I will say this. I think the Women Tell All last night was one of the better ones they've done.
Yes.
In the history of Bachelor. So at least this season has that going for it. But, oh, my God, the Winter Lames, as I think we should start calling it. I know it's a little late now, but, I mean, they couldn't get that show over fast enough. It was like somebody looked at it and said, let's get this down to 4 episodes, guy, and get the hell out. But it was so bad. But the Women Tell All holds a lot of choice morsels to savor. So I know it's a lot for you to have to write and review and us to talk about, but I think the Women Tell All is going to be a worthy show to talk about. The rest of it around there in the season, and the Winter Games, not so much.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about the Winter Games. Well, like I said, 4 episodes, 1-week show. Oh, you know what? Actually, before we head out, before we get into this whole thing, I want to send a shout out. That's what I'm going to do. I want to set out a shout out to John Gouge, Gouge. I got an email last week from this man, and he gave a 2-paragraph, very detailed, very elaborate, great email about how he stumbled upon our podcast and how interesting it is. I'm going to read it to you, actually. I am going to read it to everyone. So it says, "Hello, Jim. It did not occur to me until this week that there might be such a thing as a podcast devoted to The Bachelor, where there is now. When I started this, by the way, I think I was one of like 2 or 3 podcasts. Like it literally was a handful when I started my podcast, the Bachelor Universe podcast. And now it's like multiplied like worms. I mean, it is all over. It's like
rabbits in heat.
Worse. I mean, there's everyone has a podcast on a Bachelor, so it's like right now you're like trying to find a diamond in the sand. But so yeah, I could say I'm one of the originals maybe when I started this.
That's awesome.
But John continues, I'm not a regular viewer of the show, but got caught up on this season because I'm a big fan of all things IndyCar and Indianapolis 500. So John's a racing guy. There's a lot of fans of that. There's a big fan base for that. Absolutely. I also watched a Bachelorette season on which Ari appeared. So that was a few years back with Emily Maynard.
Right.
Since Monday night, I have listened to episodes from 6 different podcasts, one of the millions out there, by the way. And John goes, and I can say that your show with Jeff York is my favorite by far, which is outstanding to hear that, Jeff.
That's great.
He goes on, I've only listened to your review of episode 5, so I was a little bit behind on the posting, as it appeared the most recent available, right? We have updated since. I think it's up to 7 or 8. Then he goes on in second paragraph, pretty remarkable how accurate your predictions were and how astute your insight is. I would credit this to you, Jeff, more so than me. Nothing's astute about me. I wrongly picked Caroline to be the last standing. You see, John was picking Caroline too.
That's your gal, your choice.
That was my choice from day one. I said it on this podcast. You know, when Paige was still not in captivity and she was still lost, she heard it too. So I have witnesses on that.
That's right.
And now Caroline's finally getting the due that she should have gotten from the game.
Absolutely. We'll talk about her soon.
Absolutely. And so John even picked her to be last girl standing. So there was something about her. Then he goes, since her exit, I've had my eye on Lauren. Okay. It sounds cynical, but she best fits the mold of other race car driver wives and girlfriends. That is such an interesting point here by John. You see, we don't know the Indy car kind of world and what these racers date, but if there's a thing about, athlete's girlfriend, there's usually a type, there's usually that's a thing for sure. So John's making a big potentially reveal here by saying that Lauren, he feels, fits the mold of a race car driver girlfriend. And remember this, Jeff, Lauren looks a lot like Emily Maynard.
That's
if you
true.
see side-by-side pictures. So clearly Ari has a type here. And why he's been giving Lauren these chances, he reminds her of Emily Maynard, and she probably fits this mold of these driver girlfriends.
Well, she's kind of kind of athletic. She's fit. She's petite. She's blonde. I think she's calm.
Right, yep.
And I'm sure women who are going to sit and watch their men drive around the racetrack have to be calm because they can't be fretting and worrying about death every time they get on the racetrack. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He's very smart, and obviously Lauren keeps on moving forward. We have thought in the past that maybe she wasn't as colorful enough or as interesting enough to keep going, but Ari keeps picking her, and she's not the one who was in question even when it came down to Kendall or Tia. So Lauren and the other Becca seem to be, if I dare say, in the pole positions. And I would argue that going into the finale now, if I had to predict which of those three is not going to be going to the final two, it's Kendall. I think that it's going to be Becca and Lauren, and maybe he's right, and maybe it will be Lauren, which would be surprising, but maybe not, because she's been slow and steady kind of winning the race.
Yeah, and no pun intended.
And then I keep doing this despite myself.
So he goes on with that. He's like, he explains that he's like both in demeanor, which we kind of just spoke into,
okay,
and especially look as boring as she might be. Great point, John, here. Like, this is a good description here and good take on someone who doesn't watch The Bachelor and just kind of knows what Ari might be into. And then he kind of summarizes this. He's like, Becca would not shock me as she has a similar cheekbone structure to that of Ari's mother, Mikey. Yes, the old Oedipus complex.
Oedipus, I tell you, he's he knows what he likes. That's the woman model that he's grown up with. So yeah, somebody who is sort of cut from the same cloth, if you will, is somebody that would probably be very appealing to him in a younger dating version. Mm-hmm.
This is very interesting insight to someone who has more insight to Ari than we do.
Man, maybe he should be the co-host instead of me.
Paige, you just lost your...
Sorry, Paige. You can stay on the wheat farm with Becca M. and enjoy your getting toked every night. But John is going to be... It's going to be Jim, Jeff, and John, the 3 J's, talking about all things Bachelor.
And he summarizes, he says, I'm probably wrong, but in the end, I don't think he marries either. So that's an interesting perspective, too. So for someone who kind of knows more insight on Ari and his personality and who he might be, this has something credence to what I'm going to talk about later on. And then he finishes up by saying, anyway, thank you to you and Jeff for putting them to work and keeping us entertained. All the best, John. Well, thanks for being a fan and
thanks,
really
John.
writing this cool email and offering some cool insight. that we can actually share here. And that's really cool that, for someone, it's especially awesome that when you get someone who's not a Bachelor fan, and it's a guy too. So someone that would really not fit the mold of this podcast at all, for someone to actually enjoy it and, be compelled to write an email, that's kind of that means we're doing something good here, Jeff.
I think so. It's very complimentary and very satisfying to know that kind of person happened upon this and was that impressed and took the time to write. We know, at least I know this, as you probably well do too, Jim, but it's a marketing truism that for every person who writes, there are probably 50 people who don't write. Maybe they'd like to, maybe they want to, but they just don't do it. It's time-consuming and having to look up addresses and go through all the rigmarole. Even in this modern age of email, it's asking a consumer to do a lot. So if he writes, that means there's a lot of people out there who are listening to the show and being impressed by it and enjoying our Bachelor conversations and especially from, I think, the point of view of two people who look at it with a little bit more of a forest for the trees perspective, because of course I'm married and you're a man who's looking at a show that is primarily a female audience. So we're looking at it a little bit different. And I think especially when it comes to the male lead, like they have when it's the Bachelors, rather than the Bachelorettes, I think there might be some insights that men have about sort of how they're choosing and sort of navigating through it that women probably do as well, but it's from a different perspective. And I think we bring that to it. So maybe that's part of what he's responding to as well.
Yeah, no, so that's awesome. Thanks for writing to us, John, and keep on listening. That'd be great if you stuck around to be a fan, because we definitely could use every listener, and we definitely appreciate that we have. This isn't just us talking to each other, even though we probably would have done it anyway if we were not recording this. So
that's right. We would have just done it over coffee rather than into a microphone. So,
well, let's head into Bachelor Winter Games episode 4 finale, which you never hear episode. This show is shorter than Black Mirror.
And it's about as a frightening a statement about the state of television too, isn't it? Because it is not a good show. It is just sort of. It's so weak and ineffectual that it almost became pathetic. I mean, Bachelor in Paradise, at least you can say, is a comedy, and it's very funny. And it's a little sexier in some respects than The Bachelor because, they're down in a tropical location and they're wearing less clothing. I don't know what the hell the Winter Games offered other than, hey, we'll do our counter programming for those women who don't want to watch the Olympics on NBC, because this was sort of a train wreck from the beginning to end.
Yeah. So, okay, well, the episode started off, Chris Harrison, of course, arrives at the house. He plows through the snow. And he had to show that shot of him just getting through the wintry snow and into the house. So I loved how he started off. He's like, all serious, like Chris Harrison does. He's like, this show is not about games. It's about relationships. Okay. It's like, oh, really? So really, Chris Harrison, you modeled and themed this whole damn thing. You have something so dumb called the Bachelor Anthem. And you had all this like goofiness, trying so hard, and failing so bad at trying to compare this to an Olympic in any way possible. And now suddenly when it flames out and it looks corny as hell, now it's about relationships now. Is this like a last ditch effort, Jeff, for them to like try to maybe use this as like a spin-off? It's like next year, like, well, we don't have to tie this to Olympics. We can do just a winter show instead of, and have Paradise be a summer show. And that was the Olympics was a one-time thing, but we're going to continue this because it's about relationships at the end and not about the games.
Well, I think you're right. I think that they are looking to expand this franchise as much as possible and not have a quarter of the schedule where they're off. They do one Bachelor, one Bachelorette each year, and then they have Bachelor in Paradise now, which has become, a summer regular. And this would give them something to do. Probably, if they were smarter, they wouldn't necessarily do it maybe in tandem with either the Olympics or the Winter Games of that sort, or even winter sports. I mean, they could do it, as programming to they could do an hour after Dancing with the Stars or something when that replaces the Monday 7 to 9 show. But the one thing, if they were really smart, and I think, again, you're hitting at it, Jim, is it isn't about these stupid games and these dumb contests that don't mean anything. It is about putting these people in a house, and maybe that's a little Big Brother-ish of them, but so what? That's the Bachelor in Paradise model too. And, it's like being holed up in the lodge during a ski trip, and almost sort of like a ski vacation. And they can go out and they can ski or skate or make snowmen and have snowball fights. That would be great. But essentially it's like, well, what's going on in the house? Is there any chance for these people who have been losers in love in previous Bachelor outings to find it now? And it's the exact opposite of less clothing. It's more clothing because, they're in sweaters and sitting by the fireplace, which is also inherently romantic and kind of cozy and everything else. But I'm with you. I think if they bring it back, they should call it, the Bachelor Lodge, which would be, again, sort of conjuring up the ski lodge idea without it having to always be tied to the Olympics, which is going to be only every 2 years, so they couldn't do it. If they want to do that next Olympic season, fine, they can say, hey, the Winter Games is back to coincide with the Olympics. But I think if they want to do something that keeps it on the air all year round, they could do like a Bachelor Lodge or Bachelor Ski Lodge even, and something like that. And they could have some fun contests, like who builds the better snowman, or you have to build a snow person of the person that you're dating. That would be funny. Like what would Bibiana look like as a snowman? That would have been clever and fun and much more interesting than them trying to ape Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan and ice skating pairs like, that kind of stuff, which they did in this episode, which just looked completely lame because most of these people aren't good skaters.
Yeah. So we get that big, of course, notification from Harrison just to make sure that, this is real. This is serious. This is about relationships. And not games, even though the whole damn thing has been based on games.
Right.
So then after that, we have, their final event. Basically, it's announced that it's going to be couples. They're going to be ice skating.
Right.
So it's couples skating, the big last event. So everyone starts training. And right away, Bibiana, the skater extraordinaire that she is not having it with Jordan because she's complaining and like trying to coach him up. And it's like, when did Bibiana turn into like Nancy Kerrigan? Well, speaking of that, she's coming up. But it's like, really? When did you become like some, skating and ice skating and skiing, expert when you can't even get off the finish start line, basically?
Well, the funny thing too is like she's got a pretty cool guy in Jordan. I mean, he came on the show sort of being set up as a sort of loathsome man in the Me Too era. And he's the guy who flipped the coin when he was down under. And, that's how he picked the woman as his final bachelorette standing, because he wasn't really interested in keeping either one of them. So he was that flip about it, both in action and in his heart. But he's actually turned out to be a pretty cool guy in this. I think he's smart. I think he's clever. He seems very calm. Doesn't seem to be buying into too much of the craziness or the drama. And she can't leave that well enough alone. He's a good guy, and he's expressed interest in her, which I can't believe that she doesn't think, wow, this guy from another land is interested in me. And there's other people he could have gone for who might have been more of the the sort of refined bachelor kind of woman that you'd want. I mean, Bibiana's a little rough around the edges. She's got a little bit of that street quality to her, but that's not enough for her. She's got a bitch about his skating.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So, Jordan gets a rough deal, and then suddenly this couple that was so into each other and, all about each other, suddenly they're not. Bibiana gets mad at his skating. Jeez, I keep on saying skiing. And like she's shunned. She shuns him and kind of starts like her hissy fit. And then he kind of asked her, which is the most mature thing anyone has done in this damn house yet. He kind of asked her like, "Hey, this is ending, so what's going to happen with us? I'm in New Zealand, you're in Miami or wherever. Like, how are we going to make this work? I'm willing to make it work." It's like this guy is wanting to legitimately. I did not see a reason not to believe him.
Exactly.
That he wanted to work this up, and she just like, this is so confusing. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Like, she just melted like a 12-year-old that, like, you know, at a come on, that's like getting her phone taken away from her or something. Like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, she turned so like flustered and scrambled and just like couldn't. Well, I can't make this. This is overwhelming. No, it's clear that you just saw this as like a mess around. You talked yourself up, Bibiana, how you're in such a big relationship, how you're so happy, how such a great guy, and suddenly when moment of reality came, you completely choked. And that kind of is reflective, Jeff, of a lot of these contestants on this show. And this guy now who came in as this villain was the most mature, legitimate guy who actually wanted something to work. You know, I never liked Bibiana. I thought she was a loudmouth from the beginning that just kind of like an attention grabber that there's nothing redeeming really about her that I've noticed on the show or nothing interesting. She's just like, I don't know, people like, she's very overrated to me. I don't know what she brings to the table and what's her gimmick really besides kind of being in your face, but yet also she was in your face on Ari's season, but yet she was shunned at every expense. She was kind of like the joke of everything because everyone took her.
Yeah, she set up that big bed date thing,
so it's like
other people were using it before she got a chance to. I am broken. She said, "I am broken." You know, whatever.
I don't get the Bibiana love and why they were so excited to bring her on this Winter Games. I just don't get it. But this once again showed me that this chick is immature, that she's all talk, literally, and no action.
Jim, do you think that I always wonder too with some of these people, once they've had the taste of Hollywood fame and, you know, they're on television and they're being interviewed and they're being jetted around all these locations or whatever it is, if they get a little bit of that taste of Paris and then they can't be kept down on the farm, as the old song goes. To me, I'm watching.
Could have been kept down on the farm.
Exactly, literally and figuratively. Well, I mean, he would go to the opening of an envelope in Hollywood. I don't know how many times he was on Dancing with the Stars, not only as a contestant but in the audience and all kinds of other, you know, talk show possibilities and events where he could go and walk the red carpet. But I'm wondering if you know, Bibbs here maybe was getting a little bit full of herself being out there and getting that taste of fame, and if maybe she wanted to clear the deck so she could possibly be the next Bachelorette, which you and I know she's not going to be. But I think these people get a full head and they think, hey, I'm interesting, I'm colorful, I'm different. They've never had a street tough girl like me as the Bachelorette, and she's got the Latina thing, which gives her, you know, that sort of you know, diversity, which The Bachelor has often been criticized for not having. So maybe she was convincing herself, hey, I've got to drop Jordan here because I've got to be available in case they call me to be the Bachelorette. So I'm clearing the decks and making myself available for that. I don't know. I mean, I know that's a cynical take on it, but I sometimes wonder about that kind of stuff. I mean, you've got Vanessa Grimaldi, who is giving out the comments through her publicist that, well, we couldn't decide on where we wanted to live together, Nick and me, and I need to go back to Montreal. And then she's sticking around L.A. and hawking hair and makeup on Instagram for the next 8 months. Well, she didn't go back, did she? Yeah. So that isn't real. And again, I think she got the taste of the acting bug or the modeling bug or the Hollywood, hey, you can make six figures just holding this hair care product and showing how good your hair looks on an Instagram shot every couple of days. And then suddenly being a teacher and getting the modest salary the teachers make in Canada, it's not that appealing despite her doing that for the first 10 or so years of her career.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just over Bibiana and her shtick. They try to really push her on both The Bachelor and on Winter Games. She doesn't do anything for me at all, and I'm just not a fan. So yeah, she just gets all flustered and she can't handle some honesty and legitimacy. So right away she fleds home, and no Kiwi romance for her. So Jordan obviously has to leave too. Nothing left for him, and that one erupted and blew up really quick and ended even quicker.
Right.
So that after night, we have the overnight. So that's another thing that's coming up. But first, we get introduced to the skiing instructors for this event, and it's Nancy Kerrigan. She's one, and she looks still damn good. First of all, I don't know how old she is, but she's aged really well.
Yeah, and she acquitted herself very nicely in this. I mean, it's not exactly real coaching, but I thought she had some funny lines and some good expressions and came off dignified. I tell you what, though, this is a little bit of the tin ear quality or problems with The Bachelor, and that is this would have been a perfect opportunity for them to bring in Tanya Harding. I mean, she's got a big movie, and Margot Robbie's in the Oscars next weekend, and they don't bring in Tanya Harding. I'm sure Tanya Harding would have done it. I mean, if they threw six figures at her, she would have been there, on her own airfare on Southwest, And I mean, Nancy Kerrigan's kind of analogous in a way and sort of like that, but she doesn't figure strongly in the movie I, Tonya. She's only in a couple scenes because it's not about that rivalry and that relationship. It's really about Tanya's relationship with her husband and her mother. But, of course, The Bachelor misses that kind of opportunity and gets the next best thing.
Yeah, no, completely. And so I'm just like, oh, Nancy Kerrigan's still looking good. And trying to teach these helpless souls not Chris souls, just helpless souls how to
He is a helpless soul, though, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
To skate. And
right.
It's not working. It's just not good. So then we have the overnight teas. So, of course, Chris Harrison arrives to tell him that they have an option of a fantasy suite, and Dean and Leslie, of course, take theirs, and of course they mention like, oh, we're boyfriend and girlfriend. They had to throw that out there too. Whatever. And then Luke
she got over the womanizing real fast, didn't she?
Yeah, everyone forgets that.
Oh, a lot of talk. I mean, last episode she was sort of busting his balls for a good segment of the show, but then, oh, look, they're making out. I guess none of that really matters. So she's all talk.
Mm-hmm. So then it was Luke and Stassi, and, Luke being such a, calming soul. And he was just looking out for her best interest, so he didn't want to rush her, so she didn't even spend the night with her. He was so okay with it. BS, because he wanted to get in that bed with her so bad, but he tried to, I love the shades of Luke here, shadiness of him too, but like trying to first play off that I got exposed, trying to play off the, well, I respect you. I don't want to spend the night with you. Of course not. I know you're not ready. We're going to do this properly because I care so much about you. I wouldn't want to jeopardize that. Oh, yes, I respect you to do that. So, wow, what a great guy.
I know. And see, there you wonder if that's the motivation or if it's just to stay on camera. Was he hooking up with Stassi just enough to keep on camera the whole time, to stay around the house as opposed to going home like some of the people who didn't make a love connection and they were gone after the second episode?
Then Lily and Courtney, they surprisingly she didn't take the overnight. Like they agreed mutually. They seemed cool about it, and she didn't. I thought these two would be like right on it, but they didn't. They didn't spend the night together.
But you wonder, Jim, is that because they're actually mature? I mean, I think they had a very good connection, and they were sort of flying under the radar. There wasn't a lot of time spent on them, probably because they're from a foreign land. But I think they probably sense that, hey, we don't have to rush this and do this baloney for the cameras and all this pressure to kiss and tell. But I really like you, and we can continue to sort of be a couple, and we'll do it in our own time without having to worry about cameras and all that stuff, which would kind of really, if you think about it, ruin that first coupling because, just as you're wanting to get in the mood, suddenly you have to remind yourself, there's cameras there, so they don't leave until we start to undress.
Then there's Ashley, and Kevin, and the best thing for me was just like he when he said he was jealous of her virginity and tells her the first time will be great. It's like, oh really, Kevin? Because it's gonna be with you probably.
I know. Talk about an oversale. a big sell there, like, he sounded like a used car salesman. Man, when you sit in this baby, you're going to be driving down the road, and everybody's going to be looking at you and wishing they were you. And he's like, I wish I was you. Your first time's going to be great, and if it's with me, it's going to be great. I mean, it just
right. Well, I'm so jealous of it. Oh yeah, something to be really jealous of.
I was believing them up until that point where I thought, that sounds a little bit wrong. I felt a little sorry for Ashley I, but of course she keeps milking the virginity thing for all it's worth too, so I didn't feel too sorry for her.
So then, and we don't see anything. They just kind of accept these overnights, and then we just see that morning after. There's no sense of what happened. You just see Courtney pelting snowballs at Lily's window. He almost hit her in the face too with them.
Dean is making Leslie breakfast. It's really so that because that's the part of their relationship we want to see is how he makes scrambles eggs. No, I want to see how he scrambled her eggs, if you will, the night before. But of course, so much of The Bachelor, even the Winter Games, is just a tease.
Yeah, I mean, come on, Dean making breakfast too. What is the reality of that?
Do you think he used his dad's recipe? There's different leaves and beans and stuff in that, blessed with the chakra or whatever from his father. Like, Dean, I've blessed these beans and that will be part of your English breakfast. Really, Dad? They're just Van Camps. No, they're not, Dean. I've blessed them.
What a great voice.
Oh, thanks.
The wizard's voice. You got it nailed, Jeff. And then, the most annoying one was the Kevin and Ashley I. It's she was calling it an incredible night, and it's I don't want to reveal. Suddenly, you build your entire gimmick because she's a gimmick to me. She's not even a reputation. She's just a walking gimmick. She built her whole gimmick on virginity, and now suddenly it's off topic. It's off the table, Jeff. You can't talk about virginity. She will not talk about it. It's you're such a revealing personality. You're Ashley I. You have a podcast with Ben Higgins. Thank goodness John isn't listening to that one. And it's and now suddenly you're closing off. You're not revealing. You're acting like your whole gimmick for the past 3-4 seasons is now off the table. You cannot talk about her hooking up or not, which was painfully obvious that she did. I mean, it was so badly covered up, but yet now just the gall of her to be I'm not talking about it. We're not going to talk about it. We made a vow not to talk about it. No one talks about it. Yeah, okay, Ashley I. You're just a fake, she's just a cartoon character, really.
Well, you're right, Jim. And you know what really bothers me about this show, and it's getting worse at it. You'd think after all these seasons they'd be getting better at it, is they're getting really, really terrible at being half pregnant. And what I mean by that is, of course, you can't be half pregnant. You either are, you aren't. And to me, the show either has to be titillating and sexy and fun and sort of open-minded and free-spirited about the couplings and love and the fact that they seem to all be dating within this orgy pool, or you have to be kind of romantic and stoic, and the sex part doesn't really have as much of a factor. Unfortunately, this show always wants to sort of balance it, but then they end up neither being romantic nor sexy. With Ashley I, how dare they not have her talking about it if she has indeed lost her virginity after all these seasons? It was an opportunity for her to sit down and actually say something meaningful and even poignant, perhaps sweet about it, especially when they do the sort of aftermath where they're all talking about it, and she talks very proudly about how all these women come up to her and are so glad that she's a virgin and she's a role model. Great, but then talk about why the sex was meaningful here. Or the fact is, maybe they didn't want to talk about it because it kind of ruins the whole I'm waiting for marriage. Well, you're not waiting for marriage. You're just as sort of loose and kind of silly about it because you're doing it with somebody you've just met and spent 2 weeks with on this bad, lame version of it in the wintertime. And I just think that The Bachelor... Yeah, The Bachelor needs to be either super sexy and show the skin, have the canoodling, have all the dirty talk, have all the double entendres and like Three's Company. It needs to be Three's Company, and Bachelor in Paradise comes very close to Three's Company. But when they get all, oh, well, now we're not going to kiss and tell, but then half an hour later, we'll have Ashley I breaking into tears as she's so proud that she's a role model, like she's right up there with some of the kids from, the Florida high school now who are, projecting such a great image for other young people to follow and get involved in politics and stuff like that. Well, either you slept with him or you didn't, and I think you owe it to us to talk about it because it's your gimmick. And tell us what's important about it, or what it was like, or why it was better because you waited. Again, The Bachelor always wants to eat its cake and have it too, and they end up being half pregnant, but you can't be. So they're neither fish nor fowl, and it's frustrating. It's just stupid.
Yeah, it was. It was almost like insulting to the fan and audience members. It's like, you know what? You're gonna dangle this carrot in front of, no pun intended. You're gonna dangle it in front of us, and just like, especially with her gimmick, she's just another fake and another. Her and Bibiana, goodbye.
We've spent 4 seasons. We've been 4 different shows, 4 different years, 4 different seasons with Ashley I, and her gimmick is that she's a virgin, and then they insinuate that she has had sex, and there's not any kind of confessional about it. They will have confessionals about every other kind of thing, the one-on-ones where they're evaluating the date and giving the play-by-play or the morning after kind of armchair quarterbacking, but there's no discussion of what actually happened here. Unbelievable. It's one of the biggest botches in the Bachelor franchise. And I can't believe that they missed that opportunity. It should have been the entire story of the Winter Games if that happened. And if it did happen and they didn't talk about it, shame on them. They don't even know their own brand. They don't even know Ashley I's brand.
Right. And they tried to build some fake, garbage. I don't want to even talk about it.
Yeah, let's move on. So can we get to the get to the better
showtime, the final event, the big event of the skating showdown, and it's of course Chris Harris. I mean, it's at the Manchester, Vermont ice skating rink.
People are in the audience. It's just terrible.
Yeah, Hannah Storm is there again, and she said that she's never. I'm trying to say this with a straight face. I can't. She's never seen or felt anything as electric as this atmosphere in Manchester, Vermont.
It's been a while since she's been to any of these events, I guess.
Jeff, this moment, it's like, Chris Harrison introduces her like, she is very credible and been long-running sports broadcaster, and it's like, and reporter, and a Sports Center person and ABC person. And so for me, Hannah Storm, by saying that line, I mean, you're already on the ledge when you started on the show, but with this line now, I am officially proclaiming you as your career is sadly indeed over at this point.
It's like Geraldo going into Al Capone's vault. You
have never felt she's like been at Super Bowls and Olympics and NBA Finals and all these events. She's never felt anything electric with like 15 women and one guy that's supposed to cheer in Vermont, Manchester, Vermont, wherever the hell that is. You've got to be kidding me.
But see, this is where, again, the show, I think, doesn't know what to do, really, because if you're going to do this as parody, if you're just going to make fun of it and treat it like it's the $1.98 beauty show or Match Game, where you're kind of, in some respects, making fun of a game show. I mean, if you watch Match Game with Alec Baldwin, he makes fun of the contestants openly, just like Chuck Barris did during the Gong Show and Rip Taylor did during the $1.98 beauty show a number of decades ago. And it's very self-conscious. Fine, be that. But it isn't. It's half that and it's half not that. They put this eyeliner on Dean that makes him look asinine, and nobody wears eyeliner like that out on the rink ever. Not even the women. I mean, I'm sorry, Katrina Witt never wore that much eyeliner and glitter stuff on her eyelids, and they put that on him, and it's all to make fun of him, to laugh at him, like, oh, he's such a pretty boy, he's such a girly boy, and now we're going to make him look really, effeminate and silly, but it's not parody enough to really make it funny. It's actually just kind of insulting, and again, sort of half-assed. I have to say, this show, I think, demonstrated the worst of The Bachelor, the worst of that sort of cock tease, if I dare say, Bachelor mentality. It's not sexy. It's not funny. They start it, but then they kind of pull back. It's a little bit like Lucy pulling the football away from Charlie Brown. But if you're going to be funny, be funny. If you're going to be sexy. They somehow managed to do that in Bachelor in Paradise, but this was a complete bust.
It was. And then they come out on the ice all dressed all goofy and weird. Like real ice skaters don't even dress like this. Like especially Luke wearing some like bedazzled, like, I don't know, what it was, silver, gold, like, just I don't know what it was, that little vest,
Again, they're laughing at him, and, it's not enough that he can't skate anyway, and he's kind of this stoic, macho ex-military guy, but then they have to put him in a ludicrous costume to make it even worse, and yet it's not funny, it's just kind of mean and a little bit sad.
Yeah, and everyone's just like, and the best part for me was Kevin's talking about how seriously he's taking this, and he needs to win because he's such a fierce Canadian, and he's all about, and that ass clown, the first thing he does is trips and face plants and walking onto the ice. Jeff, he's trying to get onto the ice and he face plants. That goofy clown just talked himself up. I mean, making Canada proud. You can't even get both feet on the ice without face planting, you clown.
It's so funny because you would have thought that these people going to something that has been sold to them and their participation in it is requiring them to play winter games a la the Olympics. You'd think that somebody who knows how to skate, but maybe hasn't skated in a while or, is a little bit rusty, might have gone out on the rink a few times, even while you're there. Like you can't say, hey, I'd like to just go skating over here. I didn't get a date card, but can I do that? Or you'd prepare for it before you were actually showing up for the show. But these people look like there's no preparation. Honestly, I feel like they were called with 3 days' notice. They got on a plane. They showed up here, and nobody did anything to prepare for it whatsoever. It just seems like I said last week, it was slapped together on a toilet seat, the whole concept and everybody's preparation and any kind of thought that went into this, and including this stuff. I mean, did they really think that these couples were going to be able to do anything other than sort of do the couple skate like they would at a rink, and you just are lucky if you can hold on to somebody's hand and take the curves? I mean, did they really think that they were going to do any kind of movement that resembles ice pairs dancing and skating? It's what were they thinking?
I don't know.
And they spend so much time wasting it with these, that's the climax of this show, and it's just insufferable television.
Yeah, and it's like even seeing like that, like you mentioned, Dean with that eyeliner, it served no purpose. It's just like, oh, look at me, I'm like a mascot, I'm gonna wear stuff and like try to separate myself and try to look, like I didn't get the what it was. Like
it was like an 8-year-old girl who tries on mom's makeup for the first time and she puts on too much and doesn't understand the nuances of eyeshadow. So it's just we're then placed in this situation where are they making fun of Dean? Do they think he's a little girly man, a child, immature because of his past indiscretions and two-timing of Christina? I don't know, but why are they doing this to him? I don't like him. I really don't like him at all, but I don't think he deserved quite that sort of, hey, you know what, let's make him put on this glitter and we'll laugh behind his back kind of attitude that the producers seem to have brought to it.
So, I mean, Stassi ended up doing the split somehow, which turned out pretty decent.
Yeah.
Especially if she was falling over and trying to get, Luke to go through the ice. I mean, that's snail's pace. Then you had, Dean and Leslie trying their stupid. Every time they do something, it's like so like 12-year-olds. They're just trying to do these weird like gimmicky things, like these dances. We're so cute and funny. It's like no one's laughing. No one thinks you're cute. You're just kind of looking awkward and dumb. Every time you try to choreograph something together, your little shtick, you and Deanie, it just doesn't work. And then by default, Kevin, the Iron Man, who barely could get on the ice, is given the win with Ashley I. And it's like, this is the best part of it. So, it's like the best of the worst, literally. And the thing about it was that Chris Harrison is like, so the winners of Winter Games, Ashley and Kevin. It's like, wait. They won one Let me try to put this together. This whole purpose of this whole show. So they won Winter Games by winning one event, by the final event. What the hell, in theory, Jeff, in common sense theory, what would be the point of doing the other 3 events when they equal to nothing, when you can only win the show by winning the last event?
Exactly. And it's not even a good parody of the Olympics, because it's not like, well, America has the most gold medals, so they won the Olympics. It's not how it works. You want the medal count, and that's great, but is the country that gets the most medals the winner? But I mean, there's no ultimate winner that walks away from it. I mean, it's all individual events, and same with here. So they don't even parody it properly. And you're right. I mean, they've won one event. It's not like they've won 3 events. So they're clearly emerging as the victorious, dominant couple here in Winter Games. It's like, no, they won one event. Maybe Ashley I lost her virginity. They were a good couple throughout. They seemed to like each other, blah, blah, blah. Great. But why did they feel the need to crown anybody a winner? It's like, look, they came here to find love. A few of them may have. We'll find that out as they do the sort of Winter Tells All show that they did right after it. But again, it's just straining to make this into something that has a winner and has some sort of triumph or crowning achievement. It just wasn't effective, and it wasn't even, like you said, logical.
Yeah, it's just so logical and dumb to crown any winners and then have this all be down to one event and the other completely meaningless. I mean, they butchered this whole concept so badly. And then it's like, of course, they get on the podium and confetti's raining down, and the most electric crowd Hannah Storm has ever seen is just, being paid minimum wage to be screaming and chanting for no reason. And of course, you get the Bachelor theme, the Bachelor anthem to close things out. It's like, I'm just wondering if this crap is over now. Thankfully, nothing was accomplished. Like, Jeff, can you tell me where I could download a copy of the Bachelor anthem? Where can
I don't think you can, and I hope you can't. And I don't think John Williams' iTunes profitability is going to be in any kind of danger for people downloading his NBC Olympics anthem, which is so iconic at this point after how many years of them using it.
No, this girl, this teenage girl, will forever be known as the shame in her career, or whatever she ends up doing will be like, hey, remember that one time when you sang the Bachelor anthem? I mean, that's going to be one of those cringe. I feel bad for this girl. It's going to be one of those cringeworthy moments for the rest of her life. If whoever brings it up, it's going to be on YouTube and all these places. She's not going to be able to shake this.
You know what it reminded me of, actually, Jim, is, and you're probably too young to know this, but back in the day when they had the original Battle with the Network Stars, it was in the 70s, and I was a kid watching it. But ABC had this brainstorm because they had a success with the show Superstars competition, where they bring in all these athletes, and then they'd have to do all kinds of different events that wasn't their expertise. And Bob Seagren won the first year. He was, I think, a pole vaulter maybe, or I forget what he was, some sort of track and field Olympian, but he had to do like a swimming relay or a kayak race or biking. And, it was really just sort of figure out who was the best all around athlete. Well, it was very serious. It was very interesting to watch, athletes compete against other athletes outside of their comfort zone and their profession. Well, that became so successful. Then they did a parody of it, which was Battle of the Network Stars, where they'd have the stars from various TV shows team up, NBC versus ABC versus CBS. Well, Howard Cosell was brought in to be the MC of it. And the tragedy of it is that Howard Cosell didn't realize it was ludicrous. It was you're having Gabe Kaplan running against Robert Conrad or Lonnie Anderson in the dunk tank, or Farrah Fawcett in the swimming relay, and really all you wanted to do was see Farrah Fawcett in a swimsuit, not in the swimming relay. Right. But Howard Cosell treated it so serious, like he'd interview them like, I'm here talking with Kurt Russell. What an athlete he is. He's starring in The Quest on NBC, and he could star on the track this afternoon. It was, but he did it totally straight. Now, maybe that was his intent to make it funny because he wasn't playing it for comedy, but Hannah Storm and Chris Harrison occasionally throw in a couple of smart little quips, but man, they should have been making so much fun of this. Somebody forgot to tell them, you have to treat this all like it's completely ludicrous. But Chris Harrison always kind of plays it straight. Even if he's cracking wise, he never gives it away. He never lets you know that he knows this is as stupid as they've asked him to ever do anything.
For real. I mean, he just takes it so seriously.
Well, he's a producer, so I suppose he can't be too funny about it. Maybe Cosell was the same way. Like, I'm a sportscaster, whether it's celebrities or real athletes. But let us know that this is a joke too. But they, instead you get Hannah Storm saying the room is electric. It's like, no, it's not. You paid people $5 to come off the street and sit in those stands. You did, because nobody was going to come to this. No. Not even their family and friends of the people on the show.
I mean, for me, the biggest winner in all of this. I mean, Ashley, I can take the podium with Kev. But for me, the biggest winner, I guess, certainly not Hannah Storm. That was a very bad look for her. I will say that. But for me, the biggest winner was Ashley Brewer. Wow. I mean, she should be the Bachelorette. I don't know if she's with someone or not, but every time the only thing I'm interested in is Ashley Brewer, the reporter girl that I'm seeing, because she like literally is by far better, like more attractive than any woman on that Bachelor season of Winter Games. Like,
so true.
If Ashley Brewer's on that show, then Deanie wouldn't be probably going for Leslie.
Maybe they could do an all athlete version. They're doing an all athlete version. I think the next Dancing with the Stars is going to be all athletic contestants. So we'll see if maybe they could do that here. But yeah, she would be good.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan. Apparently, she's a reporter out in LA for ABC. So I want more of Ashley Brewer. I want to see her on The Bachelor or whatnot. But
unfortunately, she did not show up for The World Tells All, where we got to just see the couples sort of jaw over their lackluster relationships.
I mean, the first takeaway was that so we have everyone coming back. They brought, the main people.
Yeah, they do like the tell-all specials, which are usually some of the better things.
Jordan, there's been a world of change with him. He lost his hair in the process. He went bald. He went home, and it was all right. It was a decent look for him. And it's like, of course, they started with him and Bibiana, and he still came off very polite and just like the bigger person in that whole thing. He wished her, finding love in life and all that, even though she kind of ran away a little scared and cowardly, dodged him and everything. But he kept his composure and he was classy.
Yep. He looked like Mark Strong, didn't he? The actor Mark Strong.
Yeah.
I think he could almost be his brother.
That's such a good point. I didn't even notice that until the hair. Yeah, totally. And then, you had the gimmicky relationship of Allie and Josiah, which was just like Allie and Josiah is like a hookup at a bar. That's what it exactly was. That's the kind of relationship it was.
Oh man! And we didn't even want to talk about it. They barely talked about it even after the after show.
She's puking and all. I actually thought Josiah came out came out looking better in this than she did.
Yeah, he kept some of his dignity.
I mean, she was like a fun-loving kind of like a bar chick that likes a beer or two, or more apparently on the drinking thing. She seems like a good time kind of chick,
It's amazing that more girls don't puke on that show, because all they do is ply them with drinks, and it goes on forever, and the cocktail parties. So most of those girls. I kind of like
her honesty. I liked her honesty. She seemed pretty honest and fun. Like, you knew who she was. She wasn't putting on a shtick like Ashley I or Bibiana. It's like, oh, this is who she is. She wasn't taking it seriously at all.
Right.
Even think with Josiah, she was kind of like a drunken moment of like, hey, I'm interested in him, but then like sobered up, like, not really, and that was it. I'm like, okay, they actually came off, both of them, at least authentic, and I'll give him credit for that. And then there's like, the Hello Kitty mascot Yuki. I feel, it's like if this girl understood English better, knew what was going on this show, she would really grasp really quickly that she's just a punching laughing stock in a sense. It's like, whoa, she's so like, we kind of like feel, it's just like, it was almost like I felt bad for her because
it's the worst of talking to people who don't understand English or are handicapped. They talk down to them like they're children.
Yes.
And it's very unfair that just because she doesn't know the language very well doesn't mean that she's 10, but they treat her like she's a child.
They treated her, she's such a Ray. It's like they treat her as like a little child, like they were like chaperoning for her. And it's like, you know what? It's like she might have not get it. She was there, obviously, just like excited about everything. But I just didn't like how they, portrayed her, and especially Chris Harrison, with trying to speak the Japanese. It's like I found that more insulting than anything. It's like you're not being like, you're not being someone that's like trying to like, get closer to her in a sense where, like, or understand her or anything. You're just kind of poking fun Chris Harrison because everyone damn knows well that you speak not a lick of Japanese and suddenly you're uttering these Japanese, phrases and stuff. I just found that insulting. Like, really, they're like kind of like poking, at her even more.
Right.
What a joke. So then, you have the hot seat, as I call it, the couch with Chris Harrison. And Lily and Courtney, first ones to be invited. And for me, hands down, I want to see couples like this. They are what this show kind of should be about. Fun-loving, cool, take it, having fun, but also taking it seriously in their own way. And they were the most legitimate couple to me. I believed in them since the beginning. There's nothing, there's no fakeness about him. There's no farce or any jokes. They were just two cool people that connected, that you could see from the beginning that they had a genuine connection, that they weren't going to let the show manipulate them. And that's why the show didn't focus on him much. But they took an RV across America and decided to move together to LA. I believe this is the kind of real couple that Bachelor have had, that these people could end up married. Like, I actually believe these two could be a legitimate real life couple. And this is what really the Bachelor should be about couples like these two, kind of having fun.
This is the lesson for the show that they won't understand. And that is, if you don't put the pressure on them to have to sleep together or end with a ring on the finger, you could have real connections here. But there's always this pressure like, well, you can't just end up together. You have to sleep together, even though it's only after 3 dates, which makes everybody into sort of a slut. Or you have to end up proposing to somebody and you've barely spent 72 hours with them. It's absurd. But this couple, because they didn't sleep together and they flew under the radar and nobody knew who they were and there weren't any expectations of them, ended up having a real connection and had a relationship that continued after the show, and they seem to be enjoying each other and dating, which is, to me, I think that would be the greater triumph. You can find love, even if it's only for 6 months, without having to put a ring on it. This shouldn't be Beyonce, it shouldn't be all or nothing. Just make couples happen here, especially in these kind of games.
Real couples happen. They would have a lot more success stories like these two and you actually believe. There's nothing you don't believe about them. Like, I actually believe they would be a couple. I'm like, I was rooting for them kind of. I'm like, I want to see more of them. I want to see a different spin-off show. Like, this is the kind of stuff this show should be about, that these two legitimate people kind of meet in an awkward, weird way, and they really connect from different places. They moved to LA together. They're serious. I mean, come on. They're from two different countries and they moved together to LA, and it's like a genuine connection. They didn't sleep together, like we said, mentioned earlier. It was real, and it's the most real thing I've seen on a Bachelor in a long time. Yeah. And then we get followed up with Dean and Leslie, which is nothing real about it. I mean, Leslie's just literally one of those infatuated individuals that just like seeing hearts in her eyes and not seeing reality. And then you have this bozo Dean who is just completely, I don't believe a thing that he does or says at all.
He's just a wimp about everything. He's a wimp about decision-making. He's a wimp about talking. He doesn't ever seem to want to take a stand. He couldn't decide between the two women down in Paradise. He's still waffling around about, whether he wants to get into it as quick in Winter Games with Leslie because he was burned before and he's worried about his reputation. And so he's wimp, can't make a decision, can't stand up. You want the Godfather to slap him and say, you can stop being a man, And what does he do here? He gets down on his knees. The whole audience goes crazy. He opens up the little ring box and you think, holy shit, maybe he does love Leslie. They're a real couple and he's going to propose right here. and he offers her the key to his apartment because she's traveling all the time. So when she's back in the States, she always has some place to stay. What a wimp again. That is a non-gift. That is embarrassing. And if she didn't know that was coming and she had her heart start racing because maybe she thought he was legitimately in love with her and going to propose to her, what a terrible letdown. I predict those people will be done in 3 months.
Oh, not even. I say they
3
might
weeks.
There's no, here's the key to my place. Right. You're going to pull a DeMario probably, That's what you're going to do. Like, come on, this guy is so untrustworthy. There's no way that he's repaired his image. This was the Dean. This was the Dean, and we're going to come up with Luke in a second, but this was the Dean and Luke, like a tour for repairing their image, this show. I feel like this show was literally intended for 3 people. It was for Dean and Luke to repair their image and Luke to be, hey, here's 2 Bachelor possibilities, or for Dean, like, oh, look, he found love. And it kind of like a Nick Vial did with one of my favorites, that gorgeous girl from Florida. What was her name? That he in Paradise. That oh
gosh, I've forgotten already.
Yeah, slipping my mind. I mean, she was a stunner, and he just let her go on Paradise. He was acting all into her, and then suddenly he got the Bachelor gig, and he suddenly forgot about her.
Right.
And she was actually genuinely annoyed and called him out on it too.
Right.
Afterwards, but. And here's Dean with the same thing, trying like, oh, Dean, look at him. He finally found. I was seeing quotes online, I think from like the Bachelor Twitter, them saying like, oh, Dean just needed 3 tries to make it happen. The first 2 tries weren't third, but the third one was his love. So sometimes it takes a couple times, just like right away projecting it, trying to spin it into like, oh, he needed 3 tries, or like Christina and D'Lo weren't the ones for him. It obviously is. It's like, I don't want to hear it. I can't stand this guy. I mean, he's just such a boring, lame individual.
Well, it reminds me of that quote. I think it's Maya Angelou who said, when people show you who are, believe them. Every chance he gets on these public forums and these big showcases, he shows that he's a waffly, sort of wimpy, weak man. And I mean, my God, how many times did Leslie, who's supposed to be really digging him and wanting to spend time with him, tell him to man up, literally tell him to man up? Like, she's so infuriated with his wimpiness. And then he wimps up again. And I think, to your point, Luke did himself no favors either. He came off cold and calculating. He dropped Stassi like a bad habit as soon as the show was done. And I think both of them ruined any chance they have if there was any attempt to redeem their reputation or possibly make them future Bachelor candidates. No way on God's green earth. They both looked as terrible as whatever reasons they decided not to pick them in the first place.
Jeff, it's all about the internet and the reactions there. They weigh it so heavily, these Bachelor people. I mean, the internet, Twitter is literally their end-all, be-all. That is where all their choices come to. That's where they get all the influence to who to pick and all that. It's all Twitter. I'm telling you, that's your number one place. And Luke was just getting killed for that, and he had no way of escaping that. He is a boneheaded moron. If he wanted that Bachelor gig, he screwed himself. He could have just kept on that relationship, because I knew it was so not genuine. It's like, oh, we connected with our hearts. Like, you can see this woman being legitimate. I feel like all of these worldly people from these other, they were way more authentic, way more legitimate than any of the American ones. Like, I just feel the American contestants, there's so much fakeness and celebrity about them. And these other worldly people, there's way more legitimacy, way more authenticity. I want to show, you know what? I don't want any American contestants. I want a show of The Bachelor just with the international people. I think you would get a whole different perspective of this show. And you wouldn't have these like weasels like Luke trying to do up his hair, trying to be all styled up and dressed up and being all so like, suave and such a nice guy. He doesn't want to sleep with her. He's all about the heart and their connection. It's like, what a scheme that was. And he was exposed. And an idiot that he is, he almost had everyone fooled. He was halfway there, and then all he had to do is like literally kind of at least fake the relationship with her. Like, he's just too dumb not to even go all the way with it. He could have faked the relationship with her, like said, and it's like, well, the distance didn't work. He had a built-in excuse with her. He really did. But for him to drop her and then not even have, like, did this guy not know that he's going to get grilled by her?
I know. You wonder, what do they think?
Yeah, did he not know that this is coming and that he's going to have like a need to come up with some sort of excuse? And he had nothing. He looked like such a clown. Well, the camera started rolling, so, like he had no answers for anything. And it just made him look like such a D-bag, but such a dumb D-bag, that one that didn't even come up with an excuse or a reason. And he just ruined every chance he had because now the internet community killed him. And they loved him. Him and Peter have been the two top loved guys on the internet when it comes to Bachelor. I mean, pining for him, for them two to be the Bachelor for years now with Luke. And he's done at this point. There's no redemption tour. I would not be surprised though if they tried it again. I don't know, because now they're even. Bachelor screwed Luke first by picking Nick to be the Bachelor when they promised him. Now he kind of screwed them with this bad perception. Will they give him? Will there be a rubber match of this? Will there be a be all where they throw him on Paradise to give him that redemption story built in again, like Nick Viall had it? They've done it before, like Nick Viall did. Same thing, like Dean got a chance on this show. So
they're running out of contestants. They probably could, or they'll find somebody else. I mean, I think whoever the Bachelorette is, and hopefully it's Christina Schulman, they're going to have to find some good guys from her season to either bring back for Bachelor in Paradise or bring back as the Bachelor, because I think they've all but exhausted the current batch of Bachelors who they keep throwing at us. I don't think anybody wants to see Dean if he doesn't last with Leslie, and I think Luke is a non-starter too. So they better be doing a really good job of searching for these new Bachelor contestants, going for whatever the Bachelorette is going to be.
Yeah.
Hopefully Christina, because otherwise it's a pretty thin bench.
So then we have, and of course, in happier news, because everything has to end on a really happy. Yes. So Ashley I and Kevin actually seem to be going strong. I don't know what sort of manipulation this guy is under her. I'm surprised they lasted, or I mean, I don't know what stop she's pulling out to keep him. We know she's desperate enough to keep him. Apparently she got tickets to the Patriots game for him.
He looks a little bit like Tom Brady, which is so funny that he said he really likes Tom Brady. I always thought when he first appeared that he had a little bit of a resemblance.
No, I think he looks a lot like James Marsden.
Yes, him too. Both of them, yeah. That kind of square-jawed, big blue-eyed, all-American boy kind of quality,
yes,
even though he's Canadian. Uh-huh. Well, I mean, the one thing that was nice about them is I think they weren't embarrassing, and they looked like they like each other. And I think for Ashley anything that ends with her smiling and coming off like she's actually 26 and not 6 is a good thing for both her image, and I think she did very fine by sticking close to this nice guy who she had fun with. I don't think they're going to stay together, but they didn't embarrass themselves other than the fact that the show did not let her talk about whether she lost her virginity or not, and they didn't on the end show either, which is their second missed opportunity.
Yeah, it's the smartest thing she's done, because there's no way she finds a guy in the American version of The Bachelor, because so you better keep it international, Ashley I, because that's probably as good as you get.
The I stands for international.
Yeah. And then
New
the
forum.
clincher, Claire. So they bring out Claire to hot seat, or whatever you want to call it, the casting couch, more like it. And, so Harrison was obviously teasing something major coming up, and here comes Claire, and one thing annoys me about Claire, she always, every word she says, it's man, looking for a man. Like, I've been around a girl that's always referred to like everything as man. I need something about a man. He's such a good man. Like I just don't know. I don't like that word being so overused, man. It's kind of like, I don't know if it's me, but it kind of like hints at something. Like it just throws me off. It's a very bugging kind of annoying thing when she comes through. Everything is referenced as man. Well, he's such a couldn't say guy. She doesn't trust him by a guy saying guy or by a guy's name. It just everything always reverts to, well, this man. This is how it goes. I want a man.
You know what it is, Jim? It's putting all the onus on him having to perform for her.
Yeah,
it's she's the queen bee, and that man better live up to whatever she wants him to be. And she went through that in every iteration she's done, and she walks away unhappy, maybe because she's looking for some perfect idealized man, as it were. But it seems like it's all the responsibility is put on him. He's got to ask her out. He's got to do this. He's got to be on his best behavior. If he makes one mistake, he's an a-hole, that kind of stuff. And she never takes a look in the mirror and goes like, maybe the reason I'm unhappy, maybe the reason I haven't found love in any of these ventures is because of my crazy expectations and the fact that she doesn't see it as a two-way street. She sees it as, I'm this great catch, and now I need somebody to realize that and put me on a pedestal. Well, that isn't how a relationship works or succeeds, Jeff, but that's what she wants.
Jeff, she's a prototypical internet woman. She's but with exposure, because she's all over Instagram doing her yoga and all those stretches. I mean, she's so self-indulgent in herself. It is almost embarrassing.
Well, again, she's another person who's buying into her press. Like, she thinks she's this big star now, some sort of modern woman, iconic character to look up to that everybody's rooting for because men have treated her so badly. And again, she's sort of an activist, or she's right up there with Rose McGowan. It's like, hardly. Again, she's trying for the Cinderella princess fantasy, and she wants a man who's going to put her on a pedestal, as opposed to, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to find the right person. And if I don't find the right person, that's okay, because I need to find somebody who I want as well as he wants me. And if it doesn't jibe or gel, that isn't the worst thing in the world. But instead, it's always the man's fault because he doesn't put her on the pedestal.
Listen, she found a sucker. She found the sucker for sure. I mean, I will give this. For me, the MVP in this is Christian, because Christian, listen, I listen to my stomach. Everything that the stomach says, you gotta do. And so it's like, Christian listened to his stomach, and his stomach must have been telling me, stay the fuck away from Claire.
Yeah, and he was even looking at her during this tell-all show.
Yeah,
like, I dodged a bullet there. Let me tell you, I'm so glad to go back to Germany. Never have to get in hot tub with this crazy woman.
And
there's no pedestal tall enough that you could put her on.
Right. He was the smartest one in this. And Benoit, I mean, I'm certain he's a nice guy and a gentleman, like a guy that a woman really would kind of value, because this guy has a lot of very loyal qualities and romantic qualities of him, but he is the biggest effing sucker on the planet. I mean, he goes to the level of, he
forgets that she was the one who treated him shabbily. He's worried about her after he leaves the show because he wants to make sure she was happy and all this. She's the one who showed him the door because, again, he didn't put her on the pedestal enough, and she wanted him to be, Clark Kent and Superman all in the same, presence of the room.
A desperate fuck.
And then he comes back and it's like, well, good luck with that, because you're going to be a doormat real soon.
Oh my God, he's such a desperate fuck. I mean, my goodness. I mean, the level of desperation this man goes to. This man, okay, Claire, reference. I mean, it's shameful in a sense. Really, she literally on national TV, he poured his heart out to her, and she took a dump on him over Christian, who gave her nothing. I'm telling you, she's a girl that I meet all the time online or wherever. And they it's one of those girls like, well, I was treated badly in my relationship. They're so jaded and they're like, oh, I was treated so badly. It's like, really? Because you go for douchebags. Like, I have no sympathy for girls who go for douchebags and know they're douchebags, because the douchebags show every quality and then they complain about it. Well, and then the good guy doesn't get any of the rub. They get the bad rub from it. They get they have to make up for the mistakes and sins of the douchebag,
Right,
because
right.
now the douchebag scarred her and screwed her over. So now the good guy, he doesn't get to get a clean slate. He gets to pay for the mistakes of the douchebag that she voluntarily and willingly chased, and the douchebags in most cases, Jeff, are always upfront and real about it. Because if you're a douche, you're not trying with it. You're just trying to hook up, or you're not putting any effort or hope into
false bravado out there.
But always fall. It's a bad boy syndrome. It's that whole D-bag thing. And it's like, and for once she got so embarrassed kind of on TV by Christian, how she dropped Benoit, who showed her everything, and how everyone else saw how decent of a dude he was. And then he comes back reaching for her. I mean, I'm embarrassed for him, but of course she gets her fairy tale. Cause like, oh, look, a man wanted me so badly. I went home and he was already leaving me voicemails. Like, oh, I'm so desirable. I'm going to be the princess right now. I want to play the role because I came out bad on TV and I got ditched by Christian. So I need a fairy tale. And it's like she accepts the engagement. I don't know if this is going to last. I mean, if it's up to this guy, it probably would, because he probably is looking for something genuine. But as far as her, I wouldn't trust her.
It felt very labored, very false. And to your point, Jim, completely disingenuous, which is not necessarily saying that we've exhausted these people, but in the comparison to the Women Tell All on Ari season, which we're going to talk about next, I thought there was almost nothing but utter genuineness during that compared to these people who were faking it and pretending and offering keys of, oh, you can come to my house when you're in town, whatever. I think the Ari Women Tell All special was completely the opposite of it, which was so nice and refreshing, because I was starting to worry about that season being boring and the Winter Games Tell All even being kind of douchey and dumb and false. But I thought the Ari Women Tell All episode was maybe one of the best ones they've ever done in that sort of venue. What did you think?
For this, the World Tell All?
No. For the Ari, let's go into the Ari season. I mean, we've talked way too much about the Winter Games. These people are not worth it. The women who did the Ari season Tell All were much more worthy of talking about.
Well, okay. Well, what's your final verdict on this? Because I feel, here's the thing.
I would give it a D for D-bag.
Jeff. I mean, the stats.
I hated it. It was so bad.
This show came away with 4 couples, which is crazy. No show has came away with Paradise. I think you add all 4 years of Paradise and you still don't equal. I believe in Courtney and Lily being legitimate and real. I mean, Ashley, and Kevin, it's going to be fleeting, and it's going to last maybe for a little bit. I mean, I don't think it's long term. Claire's engaged, but I mean, she might stick around with him for a while and then get bored of him. So I see that one maybe extending a little bit. And then Dean and Leslie, we know that's not going to work. But still, they came away. The show ended with 4 couples. So they did enough, Jeff. The online chatter is that people love this show. They loved it. They loved the all these connections being made. They hated Luke, but they thought this was a success. I mean, the reaction online has been way more better for this show than it was Ari's season so far. So they are forced to bring this back. I'm telling you, since they do everything Twitter tells them to, they have to bring this back, and in some form. I am now like 90% sure this is coming back next year in some form, because they ended up as a success, as shockingly, as corny as it was. For me, I'd give it a C, because it was so corny and thing. But I got to give them credit for beating the stats and getting 4 couples out of this, and really making an example that the international people laid the foundation for him, laid the blueprint of how this show should be. And I think it's up to them to go with it or not, probably in their case. But I think that counts for something, to see what this show should be and should have been for 22 seasons. And I think that counts for something.
Well, we'll see, if it lasts. I mean, I that's the thing is, I don't think anybody expects these couples to last because they never do. So even if they beat the Bachelor in Paradise record, I'm cynical enough to think it doesn't matter a hill of crap because in 3 weeks' time, all these people will be broken up. I mean, Nick Viall and Vanessa were broken up 2 weeks after Dancing with the Stars ended, and that only lasted. Nick Viall was only on that for I think 5 weeks and 6 weeks or whatever like that, and the show itself only lasted 12 weeks. So I don't put too much faith in how many couples walk away, but if it did well in the ratings and they have something that they can come back to, I just think they need to do it as sort of the winter getaway or the winter lodge or the ski lodge or something like that, because they're not going to have the Olympics every year unless they continue to do it, whether it's Olympics or not. And try to replicate the success because Twitter seemed to respond to it. So God knows they'll probably do that and not really try to put too much effort into making it better. But ratings are successful. Don't fix it if it ain't broke, as the saying goes.
You know what's not broke? The women tell all.
Oh my God.
That's not broke. So I mean, Jeff, the first thing right away, I'm watching this last night. We were both late to see it live. So, I had to get me some Subway, and I finished up a wrestling podcast too. Then the wonders of YouTube TV and allows me to record and kind of get through it without commercials. But Chris Harrison, obviously live studio audience and all that. Right away, the first thing that catches me off guard when he starts up the show, it's like there's a guy wearing a freaking bandit thing on his eyes, like Zorro. There's a Zorro in the audience.
Right.
Yep. And we have Zorro there. And then
we had fans with T-shirts. We had people jumping up and down.
And that woman jumping up and she was so effing giddy, Jeff.
I know. I think she was being paid to do that because she was way, way too excited about a season that doesn't warrant it.
I know.
But they had T-shirts. They had a couple of T-shirts. They had the Becca M missing T-shirt. They had the glam shaming T-shirt. I mean, they were trying to say, this is really a good season. Look, we've created catchphrases and pop culture references and Instagram and social media shtick and everything else. Like, but it's still been a pretty weak season. Although this was a great women tell all episode. One of the best. I
screenshot it and I put it immediately on my article. I'm like, this has to go up with everything else because it's an absolute joke. And then and it especially starts off in a really kind of a joke matter where the first topic of conversation is the big feud between the glam sham silly feud about Chelsea and Marique. I mean, that's one of the dumbest things, Jeff, that they try to grab attention with. The dumbest things I could remember, and they've done some dumb things. We just had a Bachelor anthem, okay? I'm putting it right up there with the Bachelor anthem and the dumbness of the Winter Games, some of the stuff they did. This is the dumbest thing, dude. I know they love the catchphrase you talked about on this, but the glam sham, it's like, just stop. This is so dumb and ridiculous. And Marique, I honestly lost some respect for Marique because I liked her, and I know you were a big fan, and she was a accomplished woman who owned a restaurant, all this stuff, ran a restaurant, and
well, she didn't have a sense of humor about it. She could have laughed it off, but it was her one moment in the sun, of course.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people who go away fairly early don't even get a chance to talk. They sit there, but they don't say anything. This was her one chance, but she was far too serious about it.
And she was so, and that's what makes me think okay, she probably shouldn't have been on a show because she had no personality. She was so dry, and if she was that offended and took things seriously, glam, I don't think it's a gimmick for her. She doesn't seem like a gimmicky type. So I thought she really believed that or meant it. It's dumb. I'm just you know what? I don't want to even deal with this stupid.
It wasn't glam shaming. It was just a glam sham.
Yes, it was. That's what I called it, glam sham.
A glam sham.
And now onto the petty feuds.
Jim, you just made up a catchphrase. Maybe that'll catch on the Bachelor Twitterverse.
Ugh, hope not. So then it's the petty feuds. And the petty feuds, the Becca M and Tia. Well, I think Becca M has a case here. It's not that petty, but Tia's pettiness was unreal with this whole thing. So Becca, Becca sticks up for herself right from the go. She goes to the age thing right away. And the best point she made to me, she's like, everyone's talking, ragging about my age, but I'm, 30, 22, and there's like a bunch of 23 and 24-year-olds and 25-year-olds. This is a young cast. And then Lauren S., one of the Laurens, sticks up for Becca, and she's like, well, as the oldest girl here, I agree. It's like, whoa, wait the fuck up. You're 31 and you're one of the oldest girls here, Jeff. I feel ancient now, okay? And I'm 32.
But the funny thing about that, Jim, is that, they think, there's probably a difference between 31 and 22. But there's not that much difference between 24 and 22.
No.
And, Tia acted like Becca was 15. Like she's just 15 or something. You were 16 going on 17. She's 22. She's been through college. She's an adult. She's of drinking age, everything else.
Absolutely.
But I thought Becca actually even trumped that great sort of argument in the next one when she turned to Tia and said, I may be 22, but I've been in love already. And I know what it's like to have been in real love and been in a real relationship with somebody. And you, by your own words, she hung her with her own words, said that you never have and you've never felt that. And so who's known what really love is between the two of us? You may have 4 years on me, big frickin' whoop, but you don't know what love is, and I do. So you're going to cast aspersions about whether I'm here for the right reasons and I know what love is and how to find it. I'm here because I know what love is. I like it. I think I could find it on this show, and I believe in it. And she's the actual true believer. Tia's the cynic. And I tell you, all I can tell you that, again, when people show you who they are, believe them, as the saying goes. Just look at Becca's eyes. She's got black eyes, but they are sparkling. They are like, energy beams that attract everybody to her, and they fill that room just as they were the most interesting part of this season. Tia's eyes are dead. She is 26 going on, I'm retired and ready to go to the home and die, because she's cynical. She's bitter. When she smiles, there's a strain around her mouth. If you ask a psychologist to look at her and examine her face, when she smiles, they would say her eyes are dead and her face is her mouth is attempting to smile, but it's not a genuine, natural, easygoing smile. I'm telling you, Tia came off like sort of the bad person of this. Thank God there was Crystal to make her look a little bit better. But Tia lost against Becca in both of those examples where Becca did a great job of defending herself. And Tia did herself no favors because the camera doesn't lie. And she looks hard. She looks angry. She looks bitter. And she's 26. Yeah,
no question. And I think she held her own well there. I mean, it's like, I liked how Becca said, she's like, I'm not sorry I was born in 1995.
Yeah, what can she do about that? Exactly. It's like, and then all these girls are acting like, oh, she's so young. It's like, most of you are 24. And most of them are like models. I mean, even Courtney, the mom, is a model, of course. These people are all actress and model wannabes. None of them are really legitimate, who are there only just to find love because, hey, I think I like this guy, or maybe I could find somebody here. It's like, no, it's a career promotion of some sort of the other. And that may be somewhat true with Becca M too. But like Becca M said, I've been in love and you haven't. So who's really here for the right reasons and knows what they're looking for?
Yeah, no question. I think that was just oh, wait. I mean, even though, like, wow, she was born in 95. Jeff, like, I remember 95 as a kid. I was in elementary school. I'm like, oh, my God, 95. I think it's like that point in my life where I would wear Power Ranger. I was living in Poland. I would wear Power Ranger boxers to school. No, true story. I would wear my sister would, like, send me packages from here, and I would have these Power Ranger boxers that I thought were shorts. So I'd have like my underwear and put the boxers over the underwear and go into school, and every kid was so envious. Like, oh my God, you have the coolest shorts. Technically,
is there a Christina Schulman-esque story here? Like, Jim was so poor when he stand in bread line, he wear Power Ranger boxer briefs as Bermuda shorts, thinking it's summertime.
Jeff, I think I was the cool one. I was like the cool American kid, because like it's like, oh my God, we don't have buttons in our shorts, and I'm like, well, yeah, exactly, I do, and mine have cool like comic characters on them too. That was 1995 for me, so about that time. So hopefully,
Power Rangers are go, and so is Jim in his Power Ranger shorts. Go
Good
get
story.
that bread. Go get that bread, Jim. Stand in line and bring home a loaf for your family.
There you go. So after the wonders of Becca, we get Crystal, of course, on a hot seat. And she right away, Crystal goes up on a hot seat with her. I just can't stand, Jeff, her mannerisms, her the way she, not only her like voice as you talked about, but just like the way she like squints, the way she like moves her mouth, every mannerism she makes is just so calculated, premeditated, and an act. And Caroline doesn't hold back right away. My favorite Caroline, who looked super hot. I don't know what she was wearing. I think she forgot like
a white pantsuit. It was like a white pantsuit.
Pantsuit, but she had like bra, I think, underneath it. That was wow. Hey,
very LA, very LA.
I mean, yeah, I mean that kind of a realtor will sell, okay? Because she's fashionable and she's just, I mean, she came off really well. Like I liked Caroline from the start. That was my pick from the get-go, not only for Ari but for myself. But she came at Crystal right away, and she was just like, hey, I'm disgusted how you referred to my castmates, calling them all derogatory and whatever Crystal would always say.
See you next Tuesdays and some of those kind of things, yeah.
Yeah, so she just came with fire. I mean,
she came off real well. In fact, I think she was the big star that emerged from it. And ABC must have known something, or the producers must have known something too, because she called out Ari later, which we'll get into. But it was interesting because it's very rare for somebody like Caroline, who goes home so quickly, to be in the front row and given that really great position the way she was. But she was put there almost smack dab right in the center, and she was definitely the center of attention yesterday. And she did go after Crystal, who deserved it, because I mean, Crystal showed yesterday that she's not even doing the right voice when she was on The Bachelor. She was doing this baby doll sort of Marilyn Monroe whisper thing, and all those whispers and gasps and then of course, all those other tics that you talked about. I mean, my God, she's got more tics than a dog in the Ozark. I'm just saying. She is so lame. And then you find out that she's not even got the same voice. Like, she was doing this studied, mannered, oh, it isn't me voice while she was on the show. And then she says it was because she lost her voice before taping began. And oh my God, it's like, and if you believe that, she's got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell us. She came off so bad. And I mean, she was kind of easy pickings anyway, because she came off as such a villain in the show. But last night she came off as a dumb villain. Courtney Robertson, to me, was still the best villain of all time, because she was funny, she was sexy, and she won. And then, she had a redemption when they did the tell-all there, but it still showcased some of her wit and everything. But they did not, Crystal did not get any of that. She just came off bad.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. She did, and it's like she just kept on. And then Bibiana tried to play therapist, and she's like, "Well, you need to look within." It's like, "Okay, Bibiana, you need to play therapist for yourself first of all." So I'm not taking any Bibiana advice here. But here's So we talked about the voice changes, obviously, and Crystal just couldn't admit to herself that she couldn't even acknowledge anything or just be like, yeah, I was wrong. She just had to try to dig deep for excuses and not really finding any legitimate ones. She just came off super fake. And then at the end, I loved how she tried to put the clincher and closer as everyone was giving her heat and not buying into her crap at all. She was just like, well, this show did, turn out well for me because my brother's off the streets. He saw me on TV. Whoa. Hold the fuck up here. What do you mean he's off the How is he watching you? What do you mean? He's homeless and now he's watching you on TV? He's like, well, he got word and he was shown the episode and he came back to my family and now he's back. Wait. So I'm backing this whole shit up, Jeff. I'm like, first of all, there's a homeless guy that has access to TV to watch his sister on it. What's the story there? Second of all, he had an opportunity. He had the option of returning home. Like, what homeless person sticks out? Like, this to me is not a legitimate homeless person for some reason. Like, it's an insult to every homeless person out there because no one has these kind of liberties or has these options as a homeless individual to watch someone on TV, or I have an option of going back home. It's like, this is like a fake homeless person to me or something.
And even if he is legitimate, like, how does he know that it's on television and watch it? I mean, does he hang out under the underpass that happens to be near a Best Buy that has a bunch of TVs in the window? I mean, I don't want to laugh at the idea of it, but it seems ludicrous on the face value of what she described, doesn't it?
It's so dumb. It's like, oh, he's finally back. Was like, how? Why was he not back originally? It
was such an obvious play for sympathy too. Like, okay, I've just been terrible on the show. America hates me. Again, to your point, the Twitterverse just is ripping her a new one left and right. She's goes on the show loaded for bear. She's not smart enough to know how to play it or come up with good stories or good excuses. She can't even get her voice right. And this is the last ditch effort. Like, well, before you hate me and want to throw a bucket of water on me and watch me melt like the Wicked Witch, I'll tell you about my homeless brother and how this brought our family close together. So I have some sort of version of redemption.
What a joke. I mean, that was an absolute joke. Ugh, it was bad. So get her off that hot seat. Then it was CN. I'm surprised actually CN got a hot seat. Like, I didn't know. To me, she didn't become such an important person, a main person where she would get a hot seat. Like, there's no difference between her and Jacqueline, really. So why did she get the hot seat? I just don't understand why CN, like, I could see Becca, Crystal, and Tia and the main players kind of getting that hot seat. But there's nothing with CN that happened. She was too normal for the show, as I said.
Right.
And it's like, I don't get why, and Chris says that, she was a fan favorite and a house favorite. Like, I didn't get that memo. Like, you didn't even invest in her. If you wanted her to be such a favorite, why don't you give her more screen time or opportunity to get us to know her? But you didn't. So now it's like kind of forcefully. It's like, oh, here's CN. We all loved her. Like, yeah, well, you didn't even do anything for us to see a side of this woman. Besides, we know the facts, which were, she's Yale educated. She's very well put together, very kind of normal, and we knew that because the only way we knew that is because Ari was intimidated by her. Ari was didn't think he was good enough, and it's like, when she's talking about these things, and she's like, well, I'm educated and she's accomplished, and it's like, well, why are guys intimidated? Well, first of all, you were there with a guy who admitted, the guy couldn't cut it at Pizza Hut. He got pizza, and you think he won't be intimidated by someone who went to Yale? It's like, I don't care how many race cars you've driven. You're a freaking Pizza Hut dropout, okay? It's just no wonder he was intimidated. But just and she's like, well, I'm dating around now. It's like, oh, really? It's like, and she's like, I'm still single. It's like, this girl's too normal. She's actually dating, and it's like, she strikes me as someone that's too authentic and too normal and too accomplished for the show.
Now, it also actually does this. This is the fascinating thing about some of these sort of read between the lines kinds of takeaways. As I said before when we've talked, that it seemed that the producers started to turn against some of the people who started out as the star, whether it's Jake Pavelka or Rachel. By the season's end, they weren't showing these people in the best light, right? Because I think they kind of fall out of love with their main character. They think they're actually kind of shallow or petty or whatever, and then they make sure that when they get down to editing them, they show them in that sort of true but very bad light. I felt that one of the things fascinating about this Women Tell All episode, Jim, was the fact that woman after woman who came off really well. They were very honest. It was one of the most honest, kind of forthright and straightforward kinds of shows. But if you read between the lines of all this, it all makes Ari look bad. I mean, Becca M basically said during her time, hey, the age issue was the other women in the house, and oh, that's right, Ari, because once he found out I was 22, he couldn't talk about anything else. It colored everything, and he even admitted it, which was good of him, but it's not a good compliment to his kind of judgment and behavior. In other words, it was the issue, not hers. She was able to handle a man who's 36 because, like she said, she's been in love and she knows what to look for. And even when it was first brought up on the show, she had mentioned that, some people in her family got married early and had dated other people who were older and such. It's all Ari's failure. So Ari comes off bad in that story. With Sienna, why didn't you make it with Sienna? God, she was such a star, and she's poised and she's beautiful. And if you follow her on Instagram, she's posing in bikinis, so she's not afraid to put it out there, even though she's got this incredible degree and all this kind of stuff. But nope. He had to dump her, but he couldn't really say other than, well, I didn't feel we were advancing. Why is that? Because of the weakness and insecurities and frailties of Ari. I mean, my God, even the one woman going for a PhD, Ari was so selfish that he couldn't see a way to wait for Jacqueline. Like, okay, you have to get married, because it's all about you. You want to get married and have children in 6 months. So if she wants to go to school, heaven forfend, you should support her in her goal to make a living and have a great career and all that. You could marry a woman and put her through school. Plenty of women have done that for men all their lives and in the history of the world. But he's so selfish that was a deal breaker. And the cool thing and the smart thing about Jacqueline, while she was so much better than Ari, is she was the one who ended it. She walked away because she knew he couldn't deal with that. So she said, you know what? I'm not going to keep putting my ass out on the line and investing in this when I know that because I want to go and get my PhD, and that may take a few years, he's not willing to do that because he needs the wife and the kid. Boom. That's it. It's a very constricted, very defined version of a partner that he wants. None of that makes him look good. And I mean, even letting they're showing clips of Crystal bad-mouthing Ari and calling him, needle dick, even though they beep it out, but we know that's what they were saying.
Did she see it or something?
But they never show clips of the show that we haven't seen. If it was good enough to be shown on the Women Tell All, they sure as hell would have used it during the season. Not here. So to me, by picking a clip like that, they're going out of their way to put him down. Now, I'm not suggesting that they're saying that he is, hung like a small Georgia peanut or anything like that. But it's still an insult that he didn't have to get, but the producers put it out there. Even if it's from the villain, it's still needling, if you will, the main star. So I think somewhere along the line, and they keep promising that it's going to be the most dramatic conclusion ever and all that kind of stuff, these producers turned against Ari. They don't like him. They don't like the fact that he didn't show up tan or toned or buff or, he's tired and boring and he's sending home great women and he, ruined the trajectory that they had with people like Sienna and Becca and even Jacqueline, who were quality, worthy, interesting women. But no, they're gone before the final four. And I think that was evident reading between the lines last night that these people have lost the bloom on the rose is over with their love affair for Ari, and they're going out of their way, even in subtle ways, to put him down and let the women say things that make him look like he's really the insecure guy who couldn't handle these incredible women. Yeah, no, it's true. And even, when Becca was talking, she kind of hinted at that and brought up the fact that, here's Ari, that can't handle it. She threw him under a bus. She called him out saying that he's, not secure enough. And did you love it too, Jim, that she did it without tears? I mean, she said it was upset. It was hard to watch it. They showed the clip where she was crying in the limo, and it was legitimate because she got right in there and she started to cry. It wasn't like the interviewer's questions made her cry 5-10 minutes into the trip. She was very upset, very caught off guard, but she was poised and calm, and she expressed herself and was, expressing her disappointment and her sadness, but, she didn't turn into a crying, still kind of fragile, emotionally brittle person the way so many of these women often do when they show up for the tell-all. And again, Jacqueline was poised. Sienna, why would they bring her into the hot seat? She went home 6th or 8th or whatever the hell it was, know. Yeah. But they put her out there. They put your gal out there because these women were smart, capable, and they were going after Ari, and I think they don't like Ari, and they want us to know it. I think so too. And then
Then we get, of course, by the way, before they threw off Becca from the set, how lame and corny was the Chris Harrison pulling out his phone's like, well,
let's call your mom and make sure she knows where you are. Plus, they were repeating bits that Kimmel had already done a week earlier, which was great because he did the whole exposing of the marijuana farm and the poster and all that. So, I mean, I know it's a ABC show and they're all part of the same family, but they couldn't come up with anything fresher or different. They were just regurgitating a Kimmel bit.
So lame. Just so lame of him to do that. It's like she's too serious. I mean, she took it because she's like fun enough to like go play along, but it was like she was kind of like too mature to even partake in that stupidity, of Harrison. Harrison looked like the amateur kind of like kid in that situation, like, oh, here's my phone, let's call because I'm so clever and cool and funny. No, you're not. So
exactly.
There's Tia then. Of course, it boils down to Tia. And, she comes out there and with, eyes, those dark, dull eyes that you talk about, just, saying that
bitter,
she could,
angry, bitter, dead eyes.
I love how she's like, oh, I wish I could take it all back because, like, I wish I didn't show myself, to my side and break down the walls and like as if like, oh God, Tia's the only one that it was such a big deal that she opened up or allowed.
And listen to what she's saying right there. Again, it's like she's so bitter. She's the only person who's not past it. She wishes she could do it over again. She wouldn't have put herself out there. Again, self-fulfilling prophecy. She's doing exactly what Beckham accused her of. You're the one who sabotaged your relationships. You're the one who hasn't found love. You're the one who's angry and bitter and questioning everything and your own self-doubts. Don't doubt my motivations. You're the one who is doubting your motivations. She's doubting them right there because all the stuff that she put out there, she now wishes she hadn't. Well, if she really felt it, she would have put it out there. You don't have a question of pulling it back or rechanging it. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. So I think her motivations were not love-driven. I think they were about wanting to be maybe like Claire, put on the pedestal or get the attention or beat the younger, cooler, more interesting and energetic and natural girl that Becca was, who was the bigger star. And it, again, is not there for the right reasons because if she's saying, well, I wish I had played it differently and taken it all back. Really?
Yeah,
really?
It's like for me, honestly, the Tia thing, it's an act also. It's a different act from Ashley Eyes and Bibiana's. But, I mean, I don't know if Bibiana's an act. She's just lame. I mean, for me, like I mentioned, we talked about that earlier, the reasons I feel Bibiana is just all talk. But with Tia, it's like she tries so hard. That's her thing. Remember her introduction, the wiener thing? Here's a little wiener. Do you have a wiener? Like that. She tried to be funny. That was her number one thing. With her, initially. Then she became the serious one, Then she became kind of like the leading, the overconfident, oh, I'm in the leader seat, I'm the one to beat type one. There's a lot of shades of Tia that we've seen throughout the season from trying to be funny and goofy. That didn't work. So then she
You're right. You're right. That's a great point, Jim, because you started out making one of the most churlish jokes laden with double innuendo about, well, I hope you don't have one of these little wieners. I mean, it's not even just a wienermobile joke. It's it's literally the line that she's been fed and told to say by some comedy writer. Ho ho! I hope you don't have a little wiener like this already, because it was her gift to her. So isn't she funny? The saucy Southern girl. She's a younger version of Rue McClanahan from Golden Girls. But then through the course of it, she's the self-doubter. She's too embarrassed to go and do the wrestling thing because there's no dignity in it. She's been raised as a good Southern girl. Serious. She's very serious. But then she's like, the grand old dame who is able to cast aspersions on who's too mature and immature and like she's some school marm.
Jeff, she even said it.
She's playing all different roles, and now she's saying, I take it all back. Well, would you take all those roles back? Because you played 3 different ones, and none of them really worked for you because you didn't make it to the final 4.
Yeah. She said that, I felt that I was going to be the one. I was going to be picked. Like, she actually believed it. She was so confident in her whole thing about how she felt she's going to be the one and how she was the leader Like it would have been an upset, if she didn't get picked in the end. So her overconfidence, to me, what it all spells out is someone who's just trying to fake things and is not being their authentic self. But you know what? It tells me one thing that I knew from the get-go. I think I called it day one. She is so much like her best buddy, Raven. Remember Raven? You liked her. I didn't, because for me, I thought Raven was a fake too, in a sense that like, oh, I'm the small town country Arkansas girl, and then suddenly Raven grew. Soon as she's the one whose ego blew up more so than anyone.
Yeah.
And as this country girl, and then she became the Instagram queen. Then she became the biggest talk of Twitter. She's always tweeting on everything Bachelor constantly. Right. And then she became, when she went to Paradise, she became the head honcho. Remember how she was the spokesperson for everyone, Jeff? She was the head spokesperson. You had to go through Raven to talk to other girls. You had to go get Raven's approval to talk to other girls. Remember how it was? She was the one, I don't think this is good enough. She went 180. She went from this innocent small town country girl to this big boss, delegator that's calling the shots. That she's the queen of all the women out there in a sense.
It's kind of the queen bee thing, which is a very Southern social trope. And I think, a lot of young women in the South are unfortunately sort of pushed into this. You do this out of college, but then you better get a boyfriend and you better get married and you better have children. And it's all sort of before 30. I mean, this is the trajectory in the Midwest and a lot of places, but I've seen a lot of it up close when I've done work in the South. It's very traditional, very old fashioned, but there's also kind of a woman ruling the roost kind of thing, because this is the way it has to be. And it ultimately becomes less about finding real love and more about keeping a calendar. And to me, what Tia was doing was sort of the same thing. She was keeping a calendar. It wasn't, notice that she never said, Jim, things like, I really thought that Ari and I were going to have a future together, or I really saw him as the man who I was going to grow old with. Those type of things you'd really say if it was about a couple. Instead of I thought I was going to win, and I thought it's I. Well, there's no I in team, and that includes a team of two. It was never about her relationship with Ari. It was about besting Becca, making it as far as she could, even if she had to throw somebody else into the bus, who, as Becca pointed out, I thought you were my friend. Well, friends don't talk like that. And then when Tia tried to say, well, I just was worried about Ari. I was worried about Ari's heart, all that. And then Becca threw it back at her again, sort of her third, strike that she threw and struck Tia out. She said, well, why don't you come to me first and talk about it? Why don't you come in and make that issue with me and maybe find out for sure where I was thinking? And then, of course, Tia's so naive because, she says, well, you were saying at one point about how do any of us have men back at home that we can maybe see ourselves with? And I was worried that you wanted to, really? You've been on one date with this person and, there's got to be conversation while you're sitting at home in the mansion for 15 hours before the cameras return. You're going to talk about other men, other lives. Everybody does that, whether they're male, women, young or old. And that's what Tia was thinking, that Becca M wasn't there for the right reasons. Tia demonstrated on the Women Tell All that she wasn't there for the right reasons, because it's never about her and Ari. It was about Ari's heart, like she's going to help him by destroying somebody else's chances. And then I didn't see myself not winning. That's all about her.
No, I think it was besting Raven. I thought it was.
I think you're right.
Could be like, well, that's my best friend, but like a competition with her bestie. We know who her bestie is. It's Raven, but it's like, oh, I'm going to make it to the end. Like, I'm like the second chance that Raven never had, on The Bachelor. I'm going to kind of like finish the job in that sense. And it just, I'm over both of them. I don't want to see either of them. I think they're fake. And there's nothing fun or cool about them.
As bad as Crystal was, I'm actually more disappointed and find Tia almost more of a villain, because Crystal is so many of those cliche boxes. She's California. Oh, she's a fitness coach. She's tan and blonde and probably had some work done already. And she's all of 26 or 28 or what it was. She's got that sort of attitude of the girls who have been models and kind of the game of it, and she's playing it, and maybe it's even a performance for her. I mean, she wasn't doing her real voice, obviously. Tia was really doing a lot of damage, more damage to others than Crystal, who was at the end of the day mostly doing damage to herself. I mean, she was alienating herself from friendships. She was getting her out of the mix with Ari. I mean, that time when she was not going to go to the cocktail party because Ari decided to take everybody who bowled to the party. She couldn't deal with it. That was self-destructive. That hurt her. Tia was more of a real villain in the sense that she was destroying other people. I think she kept Becca from getting into the finals, and just some of the things she said yesterday show how selfish she was. That to me is real villainy because she's hurting herself, but it's not so obvious like Crystal's was. Crystal may have wanted to hurt other people, but she ended up hurting herself more. Tia can't say that. Tia ended up hurting Becca greatly, probably hurting Ari in the long run, and maybe hurting some other girls along the way with some of the whispering campaigns that she probably did about other people who she didn't think were worthy of making it. Maybe CN was one of them because CN on paper was probably the best potential candidate for Ari as far as accomplishment and confidence and everything else, attractive and stuff like that. And Tia probably was working behind the scenes to make sure that other women didn't shine either.
Here's the thing. Here's an interesting thing. I think Tia knew how to play the game more so. I mean, Crystal tried to be an over-the-top villain. She knew how to attempt the villain. It's like she took lessons from, Courtney Robertson and all these other women and Corinne and tried to be the bitchiest of them all or something. But I think Tia knew how to play the game because she was always the first one to say "I love you" to Ari. Why? Because she had coaching from Raven. That's what I feel. I think she knew exactly the game playbook, how to get to the finals, what to do, courtesy of Raven, coaching her up all the way to what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. And I think she had a playbook that she was trying to go after. She was the first one to tell him she loves him. She was all, about love and how she's in love with him before anyone else, about throwing other. I think she took the Raven playbook, and then Chris Harrison actually kind of revealed that that Ari came up to him and said that he might have made a mistake by sending Tia home.
Right.
There's an interesting little tidbit there that he actually went up to Chris Harrison, and I can see that happening. I think one thing we learned about Ari is that he's pretty raw and in the moment, and if he's unsure, it's probably legitimate.
And I think, again, that shows the manipulation going on from Tia, and I think that that sort of quiet, sort of slow, deliberate voice. Oh, you come off more serious if you speak really slow and kind of in those hushed tones, like I'm telling you something you need to hear. It's very insidious. Again, I think you're right. Crystal was the cartoon villain. She played the cartoon villain, the extravagant villain, sort of the Courtney Robinson villain, or the rated R, or some of those male villains that were so clearly larger than life and almost, casting central of cartoon characters. I mean, Yosemite Sam was more serious and grounded than some of the villains like that. But Tia's really the villain because she's kind of like JR, where it's all done behind the scenes and it's all done with the face of seriousness and care and concern. But really, she's like the Marquis working behind the scenes and dangerous liaisons. And at the end of the day, she's left alone and bitter. But I think Tia was the one person who came off really, really badly that you wouldn't expect to come off badly in the Women Tell All. But I mean, Crystal came off terrible, but she came off terrible all season. Tia didn't come off terrible all season. I think she had that moment where she suddenly showed some real vengeance by getting rid of and taking out Becca M. But the fact then that she didn't make it to the end and she had a chance to maybe redeem herself and potentially even be the next Bachelorette because, that would bring in the Southern audience, and she was old enough to probably be able to be a legitimate bachelor looking for marriage. And it's, like I said, in the Southern DNA. But I don't think she did herself any favors. She looked very bitter and angry last night. Yeah, she did. And then, well, finally, it took a while for them to bring out Ari. I felt like 3/4 of the show went through before they even brought Ari out there. And, of course, Tia was the first one wanted to know why she was sent home when he had doubts about Kendall. And
he actually was. I felt he was honest with his response. He told her that his connection with Kendall was further, and he was only questioning Kendall's readiness.
Right.
To me, that's basically saying to you, Tia, he just wasn't into you. If he rather take an uncertain Kendall over you, then he just wasn't into you, straight up.
Well, the other thing too, and Paige pointed this out, so I'll speak for her since she's not here. But she said it is.
You know where Paige is at?
Well, I think she's at the marijuana farm, so
Okay,
I'm going to put up some flyers tomorrow if she doesn't come back tonight. But Paige pointed out when Tia was sent home, she turned to me and she goes, "The women who throw another woman under the bus, they'll always last until the next episode, but they never make it to the finals." And it's kind of true, because I think you start to wonder, if she's sort of sneaky and underhanded and maybe betraying the trust of somebody that was her friend and all this, is she manipulating me, and can I trust her myself, and will she do the same things in our relationship? If I'm married to her, is she going to be sneaky like that and, using friends against me or the kids against me? I think people see that and project that kind of personality down the road. And as Paige said, when you show that you're a villain, you might be, you get rid of a couple of the weaker chess pieces on the board, but you're always the piece they're gunning for next because they can't trust you. And I think that happened with Tia. And Ari was, like you said, just not that into her. Why? I think part of it is because he got rid of the fun girl on the show and made him sort of doubt somebody who he really did like, and it played off of his own insecurities. So none of that is good, and none of that is good for Tia, because she's then associated with all of it.
Yeah, and then we had Jacqueline, and finally we heard from her the first time the whole night. Really,
you thought she was a producer for the first couple of episodes, because she just didn't have any presence. They never showed her saying anything. It's like, is that a producer? She's really a good-looking producer, let me tell you.
So no, she just obviously has to question, and that elephant was in her room, like why. She just kind of stated, really, didn't even ask him, that she thought it was unfair that the PhD was like an obstacle, and just for him, it was just like, yeah, he confirmed it. It was like, oh, it's just a difference in lives, and I applaud you for being mature and going for your dreams and education. But it's like, really, no, Ari, what you just said, Jeff, the same thing. It's like, no, you're just insecure, and we're not going to have it.
And I'm going to give a call out to John here, too, because I think what he said about Lauren being the right person comes back here now with Jacqueline, and that is athletes, I think, because of the high pressure sport that they're in and the fact that they have to be healthy, and it ultimately does sort of become about them, because so oftentimes they're in a high priced category as being a professional athlete is, as well as having to make sure that their concern is not only about the career, but their health and making sure that they're fit, because sports careers don't last that long. That kind of personality is not going to have somebody who's probably his equal or somebody who's stronger than him, because they have to support him. Because, and in fairness, that job that they have is so demanding that it probably needs support. And maybe that's where Ari's smart about picking a Lauren, as John pointed out, and maybe saying, you know what, I don't really want to wait to have the marriage and the children and all that kind of stuff, even though he's not really racing anymore. He's selling real estate. But that mentality sticks. And he wasn't going to play sort of second fiddle to a woman who would have a better job, make more money when she got her degree, and even also, I dare say, have a psychological advantage over him, because every time they'd have an argument, he'd know that her wheels would be turning, going like, I know why he did this. It's because he's got a Oedipal hang up, or he's insecure about his age, or 100 other psychological data points that she could apply to him and his frailties, and he didn't want that. And you're right, it was kind of extraordinary that, and maybe good that he can admit that, but I think John's onto something. The woman he wants is somebody who, even if it's real estate and not race car driving, still acts like, hey, the athlete needs all this attention because it's so involving in everything he's doing. You're never going to be his equal. You're always going to be sort of the supporting player.
And she doesn't speak up for herself or say anything, so that's perfect. She's going to be kind of just silent in that whole relationship.
Right.
She's going to be the dominating
She might
one.
be smart. She might be kind. She might be loving. She might be a fantastic wife and mother and lover and all those kind of things. But it's not really 50-50. It's, Even if it's 51-49, it damn well has to be the male 51 to the 49 of the woman.
Yeah, I also liked how Becca kind of went at him again, and and he claims that his heart was with her, but the age, he let it scare him off, and and he's ready to settle down, and how he had to. It was only fair to move forward, and not with her. So,
but I love the fact that he said that, and he thinks probably when he was talking to his agent or talking to Chris or whomever the producers, that sounds good. I sound very honest and caring and forthright, so that's going to get me points, right? Yeah, but only so far, because then Becca M comes back and goes like, well, it wasn't an issue until you found out what I was. And then you made it an issue every damn time. I didn't bring it up. I didn't act immature. I didn't give you reason to think that, well, maybe I'm not willing to settle down. I mean, this woman was equal with him the whole time. She was looking him in the eye. I mean, the one thing I couldn't believe they didn't talk about Jim and the Women Tell All is the fact that he clearly had the most and strongest sexual connection with Becca M. And the producers know it. Again, the producers are showing you. They always tell you what they think or what the truth is by what they show. They showed him making out with her constantly, to the point where Becca M's Instagram feed was showing quick times of her watching it with her friends and her kind of screaming like, oh my God, look at you. You're making out with him forever and all that tongue and stuff. And how embarrassing and how funny. And of course it is. But at the time, I mean, hot damn, they were hot and heavy. And for the kissing bandit, he clearly liked kissing her best. But that wasn't enough to get her to the Final Four because he's insecure about his age.
Yeah. And
she said that too. He's talking about going to dinner early and getting tired. And I mean, I love the fact that she was saying she might as well have just said, and he wearing those damn shawl sweaters that Jeff and Jim hate.
And then, of course, you know what? Again, they had to bring out Crystal just because they didn't have enough of her.
One more time.
See, and it's like, for once, I'll give him a ton of credit because he didn't hold back. He was real and legitimate with her.
That was his best moment.
It was his best moment all season. He told her out like, "Hey, I would have sent you earlier." Basically,
that was brilliant. Yeah.
He wasn't. For the first time, all these women were throwing like all these shades at him, and he finally turned it and unleashed it on Crystal. All that he's been getting from these other women, he kind of unraveled and threw it at Crystal. The whole thing about he watched it back and how aware he is of things and how he should have sent her back. He couldn't even look at her, Jeff. He didn't even like hug her. He kept such a distance from her, and he kept on playing with his like fingers and stuff, or cracking his fingers when he was talking to her. Like, he was just not even willing to be in her presence. He was kind of disgusted by her in a sense. And she, for the first time, Ari showed that the whole dominant part, he was very dominant and direct, and she folded. She kind of for the first time, Crystal wasn't the alpha and wasn't the dominating the one in control.
She thought he was going to be nice and kind of sweet talk, or maybe apologize or say, it just didn't work out, sweetie. That's okay. That kind of tone. And instead he was like, well, I should have sent you home earlier, you bitch.
She didn't know how to handle it, and she really kind of folded. She was kind of speechless in a sense, like, well, I was really into you and all that. She was almost trying to win him over again, as if this was like a one-on-one, and it was like a one-on-one between them, and he was ready to send her home, and she's just trying to like talk herself into staying or something, or for him to liking her, and it just wasn't happening. He really I'll give him credit. He laid it all out and told her off in a sense, and that was a big thing, So I mean, I guess I'll give him credit. He kind of redeemed himself, and maybe the producers let him redeem himself with that moment.
But then the producers did the best thing, because of course they always want us to think that, oh gosh, this person is sure they're going to get a rose. They keep saying, oh, I know I'm going to get a rose. He loves me, blah, blah, blah. And then they don't get a rose. So they raise your expectations, and then they crash them down. So to give Ari his best moment, he really sort of just has the quick wit and the dry comments and puts Crystal in her place the way he needed to. And, he does all that without even seeing the new clip that everybody wanted him. Show the clip. Yeah. But they didn't. But he did it he did such a good job of putting her away. It was his best moment. But then right after that, the producers lay him low again because now comes his worst moment. And for me, the highlight of the show. We're going to have to talk about this a little bit because I think it's very, very interesting and fascinating what happened next.
We're going to finish with that.
Yeah.
And kind of after Crystal thing kind of went downhill, they did the bloopers, which is like, I don't know why they always think the bloopers are such a highlight.
Well, they're not even good bloopers. It's just Ari going, bleh, bleh, yeah. I mean, really, that's all it was this time. And how many times can they do somebody's afraid of a bug?
Right. It's just so overplayed and it was just something about his ass being flat,
Jesus, which was kind of funny, but that was the only real sort of genuine.
It showed a little bit that he can take humor. It only showed me that he can actually handle. He's not as stoic or serious or
they
certain
never
people.
show the good clips like what goes on when they're all bunking in one room and there's 12 people sleeping and snoring. They never show those things, and the cameras are there for some of that, but we never get to see any of that or how they look in the morning before they get all done up for the cameras, or what's the line like in the bathroom, or I don't know. There's so many things they could show us, but they don't. Instead, it's always, look, the girls are afraid of bugs, and during the one-on-one interviews, somebody blows a line, so they have to start over and they make a face.
Yeah, no, I thought
boring.
When we look at Bachelors the last few years, I think he's more of the self-deprecating kind of. He doesn't take it all that seriously. He's actually pretty good about about poking fun at himself and not taking himself that seriously. So I'll give him credit for that too. I think we saw a little bit during the show about that, but during his season, but not enough. I think that was just an insight.
Yep.
And then the most kind of pointless thing of for me, John Cena. How does a man?
Oh my God! How does Chris Harrison live with himself? Like, what is the connection between this new movie that they're hawking and the Bachelor show? It's not even a romantic comedy. It's about parents trying to cock block their kids who want to get laid on prom night. I mean, are you kidding me? And it's like, what? Suddenly this becomes about parents?
No,
Leslie Mann could not have. That she said, "I'm not going to say a word." I'm sure Judd Apatow was like, "Oh my God, you have to go on that show." I guess it's the promotion. It must be a Disney movie or something.
Here's the thing. Chris Harrison made it about himself. He's like, well, I'm about to be a parent with a daughter graduating soon and going to prom. That was all about Chris Harrison.
That was the only connection. That's the only thing that linked it to the show.
But for me, it was the only thing. It served two purposes. It was one purpose of bringing for me, it's like, holy shit, how is John Cena on a WWE pay-per-view that same night, Jeff?
It was like they were doing it for you, Jim. It was the combination of The Bachelor and wrestling, two of your favorite things in one show for you. They must be reading your podcasts and blogs and Real Talk or something, because they said, how can we make Jim really be delighted by this show? Wrestling and The Bachelor.
Listen, Jeff, I'm thinking wrestling, there's a pay-per-view going on at the moment on Sunday night, right when this is there. I'm like, John Cena's in Las Vegas right now for this pay-per-view on Sunday night. How is he in LA at the same? This man is like, I don't know, not even super.
They do that like 5 or 6 days, I think, almost a little less than a week before.
I know. It's a funny thing, but if you're like a casual watch, like wrestling, and then you watch the Bachelor, like, why is John Cena on 2 different television stations right now and 2 different screens at the same time, live? Apparently, both of them are live. Well, this isn't, but the pay-per-view was live, so it's just funny to see that Cena owned Sunday night.
Yes,
he was all over the screen, but it was just. For them, it was star power. It's like, hey, look at John Cena and Leslie Mann, 2 like big Hollywood names now in a big movie. We got him right here on The Bachelor.
Well, you also wonder too, Jim, was it filler? Like the season truly was so boring and uneventful that they had to bring in a movie promotion because they needed to fill the 2 hours of time with something, anything. Please, Disney, help us out here.
Yeah. It was funny. I mean, I got a personal kick out of it. My highlight, but the real highlight.
Oh my God! Here it comes.
Is Caroline. Caroline was a highlight for me. But
she was. She came off the best. And they put her in the front because they knew she had all this stuff on Ari. That's the main reason. She also had some good stuff on Crystal, but I think she was there because she knows what happens in the end, and she was kind of giving us foreshadowing.
Yeah, she foreshadowed. She brings up like what you did was horrible, and I'm discussing. And Ari put the brakes on it right away. He was just like, "Well, then let it play. This is going to play out in like few, as the days go along, sort of thing." Like as if like she was about to say something. Obviously, she couldn't.
Well, let me tell you this, Jim, because I actually went back and rewatched it. I DVR'd it, so I went back and rewound it and watched it, and I wrote down what Caroline said, and I think I'm pretty accurate here, but the first thing she said was, it's almost like this scripted 5-point precision on, it's like when Quentin Tarantino wrote those 5 things that the bride has to do to take out David Carradine at the end of Kill Bill Part 2. You have to hit him in the throat and the temple and whatever, and then he's going to heart explode. But there was kind of that thing, because the very first thing she said is, I know you're here trying to find a wife. Now, the interesting thing about that is, do you know that all of the women in the final 3 are at least 9 years younger than Ari?
Yeah.
So, he's talking about, Becca's too young. Well, they're a decade off of you. So it's not like none of them are the 31-year-olds who seem to be writing things. So that's begs whether his reasoning is right there too. And then, of course, the great line, I know what you did. Just ask Jennifer Love Hewitt how that phrase works out in television land or movie land, entertainment world. And, like she knows some secret that he's not being forthcoming about. And then she, turns it into a moral thing by saying, I don't know how you could do that. Holy mackerel, what did he do? She's making a moral judgment. And then her final thing is, I hope you find what you're looking for. Like, you snake, you talk a game, but I don't know, maybe you're looking to, I'll meet you in hell. That's what you're looking for, is to burn in hell. I mean, holy crap, that's what Caroline said to him in those 4 deftly chosen sentences. Woo.
Yeah. And they had to put a stop on her. She must have only said as much as she could. Here's the thing. I mean, we're going to find out tonight. I don't think anyone's going home. I think they're going to drag it out. Like, remember they did something last season, how they left 3 people for the Rachel season.
Yes,
Eric was like, Eric was just like literally a tag along. We knew he's going to get eliminated, but they brought him to the final. To the final episode, he made it through. They didn't even eliminate anyone in the overnights one.
Well, the funny thing too is they keep acting like this guy showing up saying, I want my bride back, and Ari sitting in the other room.
Is this happening tonight?
I don't know if any of that's happening tonight. My guess is, if it is, it isn't what Caroline is referring to.
No.
I mean, I think the one dramatic thing you could happen tonight that would be up there, as Chris Harrison said, and he reiterated at the end, this is the most dramatic season finale ever. Now let's think of the dramatic ones. Brad Womack doesn't pick either woman. Is it more dramatic than that? Jason Mesnick picks Melissa, and then on the final rose ceremony dumps her in front of all of America and decides to hook back up with why am I blanking on her name? Molly, is it worse than that? I mean, what happened? I don't think it's just some guy coming in saying, hey, I want my girl back. I don't think it's going to be that, unless the woman he picks decides to dump Ari. That would be something.
I think there's some possibilities here. I think they're setting something up. I don't know if because of all this, tonight's episode is going to be kind of a whatever type of thing, where it's all going to be focused on the final then, if anything gets accomplished tonight. At least I am intrigued going into it. I'm curious to see how tonight sets up next week's finale, because, I mean, there's enough moving parts now. I think Caroline saved this season for Ari. Literally, people who were checked out or did not care at this point.
They're going to check in now. And Chris even made a bold, brazen statement like, you don't want to be the only person not talking about it in America, which is, of course, an overstatement. And yet at the same time, this is a water cooler show. This is a Twitter show. And something crazy ass is going to happen, not tonight, next week, though.
Yeah, next week, because, all the people, like we were talking about this last week on a podcast, saying like, this is not interesting. We don't care. None of these are favorites. Like, why are they even here? Like, who cares who he pits? It's pick your, whatever. Toss a coin flip to pick any of these, because none of them really matter, because all of them have so many kind of downgrades when it comes to connecting with him. But now I think there's a whole different game. There's something else that's going to happen. And
well, you know what, Jim, the most telling thing will be what indeed does happen in the show tonight. Because if it is the clips that they were seeing where this boyfriend comes back and either momentarily becomes the fly in the ointment on whether one of the three finalists is going to maybe recuse herself because she decides, well, I was here for the wrong reasons, or I did break up with them right before coming here, so I'm going to go back, or I can't go on because my heart isn't in it and I'm conflicted and torn, blah, blah, blah. But then what is it? Because they've already shot their wad. They've already shown us that. Nothing in the clips, nothing in any of the clips they showed when ran the first episode, or all the promotions, or any of the conversation with Kimmel and the other talk shows, or even the stuff they showed last night, is giving us any clue of what is in store in that final episode, which is next week. So if that guy comes up and makes the big deal tonight, then it's a doozy that's coming next week, because they won't even show us a hint of it.
Yeah, exactly. So
I would love it if he would pick a woman and the woman would say, on second thought, no. I mean, to me, that would be the only thing that could top those other seasons. Is for the first time in Bachelor history, Ari gets down on his knees as the Bachelor, proposes to his final choice. You're the one. Will you accept this rose? And she goes, no, I'm not. I'm not that into you. Bye-bye. And he's left high and dry. That, I think, could be something. Yeah, which would be awesome and funny and everything else. But it doesn't sound like that from Caroline's warning. Like, to me, it sounds like Caroline's thing is something that Ari did that made him a D-bag, to use your term. So my guess is that is not the end. I don't know what could possibly be worse. Does he have a girlfriend himself that he's suddenly now seeing, even though he's going into the final rose or after the rose show in a week's time? I don't know. But Caroline knows something. And she's got the goods on him, and ABC knows it. They want Ari to look bad. They don't want to tell us yet because they want us to tune in for the ratings. But they know something Ari did makes him a D-bag enough to get Caroline to not only call him out, but warrant a front row seat, even though I think she went gone in the fourth week.
Yeah, no, it definitely is going to be something, because these girls talk and they're all friends. And remember, Caroline's the one that said, these girls, I love them. Like, she stood up to Crystal about him. Remember, she's the one that defended him. So apparently Caroline is the most connected to all these women, or closest, or that's why she probably has all the intel and knowledge of what happened. So I could see that also being the case.
Let me ask you this, Jim. If it is something like that, where the woman says no, or Ari pulls a Mesnick, or there's somebody somehow that before they get to the final rose or after the rose ceremony, which will be live next week, Monday, some histrionic thing that happens that breaks the band, that makes Neil Lane cry in his $1 million getaway that he's got with all the rings he's selling. What does that do to The Bachelor? I mean, sure, it makes it a water cooler show, makes it talked about and everything else, but I mean, at this point, can they afford to lose and keep sort of screwing up these endings like this? I mean, I suppose so. Part of it is laughing about it, but it sure doesn't ring the bell of romanticism if it's going to be something that's that horrible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they're milking on it right now, because they know something's going to happen. And the only thing they can do with it is just to turn it into,
we can't win. We can't win on our brand, if you will, but we can win at least in the ratings. If everybody turns in and it sullies the brand, at least we got the ratings.
Yeah. So it is what it is. We'll see tonight what they have for us, and we'll go from there. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of talking points going forward on the next two episodes. I think it's going to it's a rather bland season. I think it's going to come to a bumpy, very kind of twisting, curvy end to it.
End.
So,
yeah, for sure.
I don't think he's going away. Basically, basically we know at this point is that he's not going away with a girl. He just picks one of these women and just rides off to the sunset.
Yeah, I would say what Caroline is suggesting is that we can expect it to not be a happy ending.
Do you think, one last thing before we finally close out here, do you think she did it on her own accord and told them that, she's there, she's like, I'm going to say this tonight no matter what, you can't stop me, and just, I'll work around your talking points? Or did they kind of egg her on to do it? Be like, oh, yeah, you have some intel? Go ahead, say it. Do you think they encouraged her production to say this, or they were kind of against it, but...
I think they probably encouraged it, probably because they read the Twitter stuff that you talked about too, and know that despite some of the chatter and some of the people that have emerged as potential stars like Rebecca M or Sian, who I think are very strong, viable candidates for Bachelorette, maybe not this next time, which we think it's going to be Christina Schulman, but certainly a year out from here if they decide to, if they would want it, because I think people like them and the producers like them, and they have that good bench there. But I think my guess is that Caroline is somehow connected to somebody who got wronged. Mm-hmm. Maybe she developed a real friendship with that person, and so she knew about it. And maybe the producers got a hold of her and figured she was the right vessel. And it was better that it comes from her rather than it just sort of laying out there with it just sort of being abstract. Plus, I think they are exploiting it, whether they put those words in her mouth or they were genuinely feelings of hers that they're just choosing to shine the light on. Because, again, she was in that front row, and they've never put a girl who has gone home that soon in the front row, right amongst the final five that were the cool people that everybody got to know and really liked. I mean, literally, when Caroline was first shown, I had to remind myself who she was. And then I remembered, oh, that's right, Caroline the real estate gal, because that was your favorite. But I had to think, I didn't know who she was right off the bat. And when they were showing the promotions this last week for it, I don't remember who that was. I didn't think about it too greatly, but I thought, oh, there's Sian, there's Beck M, of course, Crystal, there's Tia. Who's that girl talking about? I know what she did last summer. And then it turns out that it's somebody who went home fairly early. So I think she knew it. I think they decided to exploit it, and it's going to be a big deal.
And I think you're right. So we'll find out tonight. It's almost airing momentarily. We've gone to overtime tonight. The longest podcast, but these were 2 long shows. I mean, that's literally we had 5 hours of content to talk about.
It's true.
Now we're gonna have another podcast coming up in a day or so. So discussing tonight's episode. It's interesting. I'm going into it interested to see what happens, and I think we're setting up for an interesting finale because the last 2 weren't that interesting at all with Nick and Rachel for sure. So
right, and we will have 2 very good podcasts about them because either we will know tonight that what they showed us they've already shown, and there's something else coming that's even bigger and more dramatic. Or something will happen tonight that starts to set up next week, and we can talk about it either way.
Absolutely. On that note, Jeff, how can people reach you?
I'm on Twitter at Jeff York Writer. I'm on Instagram, Jeff York Chicago, and I write movie reviews at The Establishing Shot. Also a member of the critics group that you founded, Jim, the Chicago Independent Film Critics Circle. They can read my reviews there as well as the other 26 members of our group, and that is ChicagoIndieCritics.org, right?
That's right.
There you go.
And you can catch me on Twitter at the Jim Alexander, on Instagram at JimAlexander11, and check out my website, realtalker.com. That's REEL talker.com. You can get your Bachelor reviews there, or you can just go to the Bachelor site that I run, which is thebacheloruniverse.com. So thebacheloruniverse.com. You can check out the Bachelor recaps, reviews, these podcasts, interviews, all sorts of things, all Bachelor there and on Real Talker. So we are wrapping up. We're done with Winter Games. We're done with the women tell-all. That was one of the better tell-alls, that's for sure. And we'll be back for the final 2 episodes.
Thank you, Jim.
See ya.
Bye.